Chapter 445. Luo Nan stood at the edge of the swamp lake in front of Gear. His nose twitched slightly. Aside from the fishy smell of water flowing through the air, there was also an indescribable smell. It was very faint, yet it lingered in the air without dispersing. The nose orifice was connected to the lungs. Luo Nan had already begun to practice the corresponding internal cultivation technique. His foundation was deep due to his year-round breathing exercises. His progress was extremely fast. Currently, his cultivation of the 5 zangs, 6 roots, and 9 apertures had reached the primary level. His liver, heart, spleen, lungs, eyes, tongue, mouth, and nose had all reached the primary level. Only the ear aperture and kidney qi still needed to be polished. Now he stood by the lake, his nostrils quivering and his mouth slightly open. His inner qi naturally nourished the corresponding organ structure of the human body, making the corresponding receptors more sensitive. The small chemical molecules floating in the air stimulated the relevant areas through the corresponding channels, activating the corresponding feelings and memories. His sense of smell and taste intertwined to form the basis of his judgment. It even formed a set of blurry images that reflected the relevant information. Perhaps Luo Nan suspected that this was a predetermined answer, but Luo Nan was still able to confirm that the source of this wave of relatively stimulating small molecules was the mushed-mouth ape tossing and turning at the bottom of the lake in the wee hours of the morning. It's hard to avoid getting caught in the mud. The deeper one cultivated, the more sensitive they would be to the changes in the external environment. The more detailed the information they collected, the closer their perception and judgment would be to the truth. Most of the time, it was beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. It was as if he had the eyes of a ghost that could see through the truth. Therefore, Luo Nan returned to Gear. He wanted to see if there were too many traces left behind from Midnight's violent summoning. If there were, he would clean up the loose ends to prevent attracting flies. As it turned out, he was right to come. Luo Nan's soul strength was like an incorporeal cloud that pervaded the void. He used his interference power to disperse the aura traces around the swamp lake as much as possible. Then he entered the passageway at the bottom of the lake and wiped away some of the burnt mud. At that time, the temperature at the bottom of the lake was indeed very high. Even if the mushed-mouth ape had crossed the boundary between the two worlds, its destructive power was still quite shocking. This was very good. However, it wouldn't be fun if they were discovered early on. Fortunately, Luo Nan had to clean up Gear and its surroundings every few days, sweeping away all the monitoring devices. Otherwise, it would be even more troublesome. Xie Junping had yet to arrive by the time Luo Nan walked out of the passageway at the bottom of the lake. Xie Junping sat in the corner of the bar outside the passageway, waiting. He didn't stay idle either. With a thought, the 10 raindrop swords circling the top of the troposphere flew over one after another. They passed through the door as if they had a mind of their own. By the time they reached Luo Nan, the water droplets were full, sparkling, and translucent. Of course, these water droplets were formed later on. Under the harsh environmental test at the top of the troposphere, it was difficult for the external water droplets to exist for a long time. They could only be driven by the strong structural framework to ensure an endless stream of water droplets. Perhaps this was the true killing move of the water drop sword. Luo Nan pondered over the concrete scenario of facing the enemy. Unfortunately, he was unable to find an opportunity to experiment, so he stopped thinking about it. To him, there were other uses for these 10 water drop swords that he had spent so much effort to condense and test them. Come on, it's time for nutrition. The electric light between his eyebrows flickered, and the external neuron in the form of a dripping sword emerged from his skull. The electric fire that lingered around it suddenly forked and struck the other 10 dripping swords. The water droplets instantly evaporated, but the structural framework was still there. It even formed a subtle connection with the external neuron. The external neuron trembled, miraculously projecting its current structure onto the other 10 dripping swords. Similarly, the other 10 dripping swords also mapped their respective structural details onto the external neuron. Just as he had experienced before, the higher his cultivation, the more different his perception became. When one progressed to a certain degree, it would already exceed the scope of common sense. It would even subvert one's worldview. Luo Nan's cultivation progress was extremely fast. It was not excessive for Qin Ikuan to praise him with words like godly speed. At the same time, his perception of the world was endlessly deepening. His current perspective and viewpoint were somewhat different from what they were a week ago. The difference was even more obvious after 10 days to half a month. This kind of change was perfectly embodied on the dripping sword. It was embodied on the structural circuit constructed by the external neuron. Luo Nan's attainments in the dripping sword could be said to be at a high starting point and a high level. He had just entered the door, but he had already surpassed the efforts of the vast majority of people. The condensation ring mold he had constructed for the external neuron earlier was a divine item that he had miraculously obtained in his peak state. It broke through the boundary between the mental and material planes in one fell swoop. It was the core that allowed Luo Nan to fully display the circulation of his soul strength. But as time passed, Luo Nan's soul strength continued to rise. His 9 orifices and 6 roots technique continued to perfect, and the level of his perception grew increasingly deep and rich. Looking back at the divine item from back then, there were some places that didn't seem to be able to withstand scrutiny. It would have been fine if the dripping sword was a consumable technique that could be used and thrown away at will. But he used the external neuron as a molding material, preserving the structural circuit for a long period of time. In this way, even the slightest flaw would be reflected in his mind, stimulating and reminding him at all times. He couldn't bear it no matter what. Right now, the external neuron was connected to the energy of the other 10 dripping swords. Their configurations reflected each other, superimposing and resonating. Due to the difference in materials, the skeletal structure of the other dripping swords was gradually unable to withstand it. They disintegrated one after another. The external neuron was much better, but it also referred to the structural changes of the other dripping swords and carried out minute adjustments. It sought the most stable structure under the destruction of resonance, ensuring that it was sturdier and more stable. Luo Nan closed his eyes. He paid attention to this process purely through his senses, experiencing the most exquisite and exquisite aspects within. Luo Nan had discovered this method by chance. It made full use of the external neuron's marvelous intelligence, allowing it to possess a sturdy structure while still being able to guarantee continuous plasticity, striving for perfection. It also guaranteed that Luo Nan's research on the dripping sword would always be active, seeking change, and absolutely not sticking to convention. Oh, Dean Wan had said similar words before. Luo Nan felt that this was the right path. He couldn't see the end for a while. Xie Junping finally arrived after the structures of the 10 dripping swords had completely disintegrated. He rushed back directly after the morning class. He was still wearing a set of archaic exercise clothes. It matched his excessively young face, making him look a bit comical. But if one only looked at his face, one would feel that he was glowing with health. He was brimming with energy. He was completely different from the bewildered, nocturnal creature of the past. Why didn't you pick up my call just now? Luckily, I guessed that you were here. I'm working hard. Xie Junping's greatest benefit after officially entering the cultivation sequence was that he could normally communicate with a few unconventional matters. Xie Junping's acceptance of this was quite high, and he was quite interested. Speaking of which, with our friendship, don't you think that we should exchange information? Let's wait until you've truly entered the door. Luo Nan was really worried that Xie Junping would become a chatterbox. He took the initiative to change the topic. What do you need from me? Xie Junping was a bit hesitant. I'm afraid that you won't like to hear it. Luo Nan raised his head to look. He more or less understood what was going on when he saw Xie Junping's expression. It's related to this place? Xie Junping sighed. He sat on an empty chair in front of the bar. The ownership of gear will be decided soon. We'll enter the final bidding phase tomorrow. An announcement might be made on Monday. Do you want to go take a look? There's no need to participate in things that I can't decide on. Ho ho, your tone is getting bigger and bigger. You really don't want to go? Luo Nan laughed as he shook his head. Xie Junping sighed once more. He moved his elbows back and rested them on the bar counter. He raised his head in an exhausted manner. There's been such a huge change in the middle, but both sides are actually able to hold on until the end. Right now, the Construction Society is still quite confident. On the other hand, the Divine Research Society's previous financial backer has withdrawn his investment and merged with the Construction Society. This has dealt quite a blow to them. The newly invested LRCF is lukewarm. There's no sign of an increase in the stakes. They haven't even given up yet. I've looked for Tang quite a few times, but I haven't gotten any clear words. Sigh. With his current friendship with Lady Du, it would be great if he was still the president. LCRF. Life Fund. The corner of Luo Nan's lips curled up. Greedy capitalistic old wolves. Those in power are vainly trying to grasp power at straws. Xie Junping gave him a blank look. At the very least, my old man throws money in from time to time. He has a bit of authority. Now it was Luo Nan's turn to dissuade him. The Construction Society is up to no good. The LRCF isn't a good thing either. Since it's not a good thing for us to have anyone take over, why bother with this? These words make one's heart go cold. So it turns out that we've worked for nothing? Xie Junping laughed and turned his head. Speaking of which, what are you planning on doing in the end? Me? Luo Nan raised his hand to point at his nose. Conserve energy and prepare for war. Don't joke around. I'm being serious. Luo Nan's posture didn't change. He laughed involuntarily. Am I not being serious? It's true that I can't choose who will take over, but I will certainly properly communicate with those who take over what they want to do. It doesn't matter which method I use. Luo Nan's gaze pierced through the bottom of the lake and cast into the distance. It was in the direction of the large living area. Ocean Sky Cloud City was directly facing this place. Xie Junping followed Luo Nan's gaze and looked forward. All he saw was the turbid and dark bottom of the lake. He blinked his eyes. He didn't understand what was going on. Though I don't understand what you're talking about, it doesn't feel too good. Things won't get complicated, right? I hope so. After all, I don't want to complicate matters. There are far too many vexing matters. Luo Nan sighed. His fingertips moved to the space between his eyebrows. The external neuron mapped the relevant software interface, revealing his notepad. There were a bunch of unfinished matters on it. Big ones, small ones, things that could be spoken of, things that couldn't be spoken of, things that could be resolved, things that couldn't be resolved. There were so many and so many things that needed to be broken through. Luo Nan wasn't in the mood to continue chatting when he saw these recorded matters. He stood up and waved his hand at Xie Junping. You go organize the parade. I'm leaving. Don't. The main character will only appear at the most crucial moment. The various teams might not even be able to make it to the city center in the morning with today's scene. The most important moment is in the afternoon. Of course, the best time is still at night. I still want to take a nap here. Chapter 446. This was not the first time Xie Junping had spoken of the miracles of gear. Luo Nan did not find it strange. After all, Xie Junping belonged to his formatting theory system. It was not a big deal for Luo Nan to agree with gear. Moreover, the formatting theory system was in a constantly expanding state. The range of influence and interference grew wider and wider, and the levels grew richer and richer. The corresponding feedback grew more and more abundant. Luo Nan, as the master, had eaten his fill. How could he not allow others to drink some soup? Under these circumstances, Xie Junping had unwittingly mutated his root receptacle. He possessed a foundation that exceeded that of ordinary people. Wan Ta's awakening ceremony was tantamount to capturing Xie Junping's root receptacle, leading him into the door and activating his potential. Surpassing Du Yong on this foundation was a normal phenomenon. As for how things would develop in the future and what they would develop into, Luo Nan needed to analyze the root and make a clear direction before he could make a judgment. Luo Nan drew a profile of Xie Junping in accordance with the artifact mechanism discrimination technique taught to him by the gym master. Xie Junping's life sketches correspondingly appeared in Luo Nan's system. Xie Junping's life sketches became clearer and more penetrating. However, Luo Nan also thought that Xie Junping was a member of the formatting theory system. As for Wan Ta's law of creation, it was also a system. Luo Nan needed to pay attention to whether or not there would be problems with two systems at the same time. He had a pensive look. I need to have a chat with Dean Wan later. Xie Junping did not know how many thoughts went through Luo Nan's mind in the time it took for him to turn his face. He mistakenly believed that Luo Nan was the same as him and wanted to ask for guidance from Wan Ta. He rushed to recommend Luo Nan. Let Dean Wan teach you how to coordinate. He teaches different techniques to everyone in the morning class every day. He pays attention to them at the same time and gives pointers at the same time. He is precise and appropriate. Not a single one is missing. His ability to multitask is truly amazing. This was the second time Luo Nan heard someone recommend Wan Ta's coordinate technique. The last time was from Di Weiwu. One could imagine how deep of an impression this skill left on people. He was not pretentious. He nodded and said, I will learn it if I have the chance. Xie Junping chuckled and reached out to grab Luo Nan's shoulder. This isn't a skill that can be grasped just by learning. Dean Wan said that from the beginning. One needs to go through 6 stages: temperance, habit, ritual, precision, efficiency, and coordinate. Each stage requires a large amount of practice. It takes a long time to form habits and instincts. It takes at least 3 to 5 years. So you were talking nonsense just now? Of course not. I just think that ability users like you would be more likely to accept it than us. Also, before you learn it, don't you need my help? Xie Junping grinned cheekily. He put one arm around Happy's shoulder and used the other to pat his chest. Look here, Xie Junping from Heaven Crystal Creatures. Thank you, young Master Xie. No, Nanster. Please call me Director Xie. Oh, Xie Junping's nose was about to touch the sky. Right now, I'm already the CMO of Sky Crystal Biology's research and development subsidiary. The company's current market value is $5 billion. From a standard perspective, I've officially entered the cultivation sequence of Sky Crystal Biology. CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. Yes. The Chief Marketing Officer of a drug R&D company is a pharmaceutical sales representative? Xie Junping pushed him away. Enough. Other than those people in the company, I'm the first one to tell you. Is this how a brother should express himself? You've got to be shocked a bit. Luo Nan clicked his tongue twice. Okay, you can hold it in until now. You can hold it in. I have to thank Dean Wan. Actually, I was about to explode when I heard the news last night. But today I did my morning classes and read the scriptures. It seems like I'm fine again. Luo Nan quietly watched him act pretentiously until this fellow couldn't help but grin. Hurry up if you want to congratulate me. A company with a market value of $5 billion couldn't be considered top-notch in the eyes of a rich second generation like Xie Junping. But the information behind it was indeed worth celebrating. I remember you saying that your family's old man would rather hire a professional manager and set up a charity fund to raise money than let you take over. How many years? Cough. How many days ago was that? That's why there's an old saying. A scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at in a new light. Look, the living example is right here. So you blinded your family's old man's eyes? Xie Junping choked and couldn't speak. He extended his hand and pointed, but soon he laughed. That's right. The old man was testing to see if his eyes were blind or not. Luo Nen understood. It was clear that Xie Junping's recent performance of being reborn had reignited the flames of hope in his old man. Xie Junping took out a company with a market value of 5 billion for his own son to practice with. There was no need to say anything. This was his own father. Luo Nan sincerely wished. The old man isn't young anymore. I hope that his eyes will always be clear for the rest of his life. I thank your entire family. Xie Junping was already disinclined to get angry. Actually, he really did want to thank Luo Nan. Ever since he became a partner with Luo Nan, it seemed that some marvelous things would always happen. The people he saw, the things he experienced, made him ponder over a few questions he had never thought about before. Unknowingly, he had already changed his usual trajectory. Thinking about it, if it wasn't for the mysterious feeling he had when he was at Gear, Luo Nan wouldn't have been able to abandon his rich nightlife, doing things like meditation, chanting, researching magical arrays, and so on, no matter how unfathomable Dean Wan's soul awakening technique was. If it wasn't for this change, his old man wouldn't have given him this sort of nurturing test for him to inherit the family business. Perhaps he would have been like those drunken seniors of his. He would have relied on the so-called foundation to muddle through his days until he tossed his last breath around in drugs, fine wine, and women. Perhaps Xie Junping felt that this was pretty good in the past, but now he was faced with Luo Nan, Shuelei, and all sorts of other miraculous characters and events. His past days seemed too low. It should be better to take a few more steps forward while his own passion had yet to fade. Xie Junping suddenly laughed in spite of himself. He embraced Luo Nan's shoulder once more. Do you know what the biggest change is after I became CMO? Please advise me, Chief Xie. In the past, I spent my old man's money. There are many times when I couldn't find a reason to spend it, and the amount was very awkward. But now, I'm spending the company's money. All I need to do is say I can earn it back, and it's fine. This is the privilege of a pharmaceutical representative. Your family's old man will cry, right? I feel like I'm holding on to a project that's guaranteed to be profitable. Of course, convincing a bunch of stubborn old fools will take a bit of time. Are you sure? I'm sure. After all, the only person I really want to convince is my old man. I understand him all too well. Ever since I was young, he always told me this. People always need a little motivation. After all, our vision is only so far. Xie Junping straightened his arm and raised his thumb, squinting his eyes as he took aim. Start with small things that are easy to solve. Get rid of them first and get a sense of accomplishment. It's the same as stepping on the gas pedal. Then you'll enter the fast lane. Under the effect of inertia, you'll keep doing it until the next motivation arrives. So I don't need to promote a lot of new drugs. I don't need to double the company's profits either. I just need to perform a bit better than my previous terrible performance, and the second motivation will beckon me. Oh, I think I used this method when I was learning from Dean Wan. Hey, are you listening? Luo Nen was dazed for a bit. He nodded and said, Make your family's old man happy, and I'll give you a $5 billion company as motivation. Is that right? More or less. Then I wish you an early improvement. Luo Nen looked at his watch, waved his hand, and walked out. Hey, let's talk about the $5 thing. Xie Junping finally had a channel to vent his excitement. He grabbed onto Luo Nan, not wanting to let go. It's not like you're going to have a parade. Where are you going on the weekend? I got pointers from your family's old man. I'll go out and put it into practice. I'll find the easiest problem to deal with. I'll get some motivation or something. Chatting really did help open up one's mind. Luo Nen unwittingly sorted out a bit of a thread from a pile of vexed matters. Right now, he was faced with a pile of vexed matters that could be roughly divided into 3 types. The first type was the type that had the heart but lacked the strength. For example, he had to clear his grandfather's name and make formatting theory a prominent school of thought. He would practically have to make the entire world his enemy. It was absolutely impossible to accomplish in a short amount of time. This included Quantum Corporation, the Ability User Headquarters, the Order of Justice, and other new and old grudges. These were the main bodies that gave him enormous pressure. The second type was the type that worked for a long time. For example, cultivating, studying, supplementing his general knowledge, and so on. It was hard to see results in a short period of time, but he had to spend time on them every day. He could not slack off in the slightest. The third type was the type that could be resolved. Most of them were temporary missions, as well as small troubles that he encountered on a daily basis. These 3 types of matters were tightly interwoven together. They gave him pressure, took up his time, and distracted his mind. In the end, they destroyed his state of mind, causing him to be constantly affected by negative emotions. He was constantly fretful and restless. Right now, Luo Nan was already clear that he was unable to completely eliminate the pressure. It was also impossible for him to lower the quality of his cultivation. This problem would inevitably exist for a long time. But looking at it from another angle, what he could do under these circumstances was actually simpler. Cut the tangled hemp with a sharp blade. He could use the fastest speed to resolve all the miscellaneous matters. He could sever the messy branches that were distracting his mind and let his energy return to the main path. He could also receive incentives in passing. Luo Nen pulled out a thread with great difficulty. He wouldn't waste any more time. He bid farewell to Xie Junping and walked out of gear. He took a look at the credit balance in his personal account. In terms of wealth, a 7-digit number was quite pleasing to the mind and body. He needed to make some extra money faster. Trigate Securities' business wasn't too difficult and had the highest quality price ratio. Once it was completed, there would be a large amount of income. Perhaps he could even give the devil Ray a down payment. It could be said that this was related to combat strength. It was necessary to speed up the progress, working overtime on the weekends. That's it. Luo Nen used the Hexaear to open a high-precision city map and loaded the team's search data onto it. He could see that the search range had expanded to the core city area in half a month. There were results, but there were also negative results. According to the latest intelligence, there was a high probability that the degree of invasion of the mutants had risen from the first stage of external infiltration to the second stage of primary infection, on a level that they were unaware of. There was even the possibility of a third stage of a new type of mutant. Luo Nen was quite baffled. Things had already reached this point. The Xia city government was still sealing off the news. It was quite shameless. Chapter 447. Luo Nen never expected that things would actually develop to this step when he first accepted the mission of preserving the genes and ecology of the native species. Though Luo Nen hadn't put much thought into this matter over the past half-month, he had still borrowed his knowledge to participate in a few meetings. He knew very well that he couldn't complete the mission alone. Therefore, for the first time in more than 10 days, he took the initiative to contact his nominal partner, Peony of the hidden Indigo firm. Luo Nan walked through Ink's channel. This crow believer had been following by Peony's side recently. Using ink as a medium was undoubtedly the most convenient. But when Luo Nan's telepathic thoughts shifted to absorb Ink's perceptual information, what appeared before his eyes was a world of darkness. Luo Nan spent a few seconds to get a general understanding of his surroundings. This was an alley between tall buildings. The fire escape ladder attached to the building and the automatic conveyor belt connected the building made the already narrow area even more unbearably crowded. This kind of dark and cramped area usually belonged to the recycling layer. In the shadow of the alley, a certain someone was leaning against the wall on the inside of the corner of the fire escape. The narrow corner could not accommodate her long legs, so she had one leg propped up and the other extended out of the staircase, half of her leg dangling in the air. In this way, Luo Nen could naturally see that the person was actually wearing a pair of cotton slippers. They looked fat and clumsy. It was a stark contrast to his handsome leather jacket and skinny jeans. Oh, the snake-patterned pointy high heels that were thrown askew to the side. Although the color was flirtatious and full of nightclub style, she should be able to hold it up. This sister was now shaking the bottle of wine with a mysterious smile on her lips. She looked like she had a hangover. Needless to say, she definitely looked good. But the problem was this nightclub girl who seemed to have just had a crazy night of fun and couldn't find her home. Was she really that free and easy, yet strong and shrewd peony? If it weren't for the obvious difference in height and facial features, Luo Nan would have believed that he was looking at Cat Eyes, who was drowning her sorrows in alcohol. Under Luo Nan's command, Ink's claws hooked onto the railing of the staircase on the other side of the building. It observed from above. Perhaps she was looking too directly, but Peony suddenly raised her head and met the crow's pitch-black eyes. She raised the wine bottle and gestured. "Have a good weekend." Against Ink or against Pat Block, it was most likely the latter, and so Luo Nen knew that it was very likely that he had underestimated Peony's level of keenness. Or perhaps Peony had been feigning ignorance all along, only revealing clues when she was hungover. Luo Nan certainly had to put 120% effort into dealing with this kind of woman with deep and sharp schemes. He didn't want to leave any clues for her to use against him, so he communicated with Peony through the rubber band on Ink's ankle. Moreover, he asked a question he already knew the answer to. "Good morning. Did you just search this area?" "I didn't. The door was blocked, so I snuck out." "Hee hee. Why do you look like you've been caught red-handed?" Luo Nen did his best to make his tone sound like that of an adult. He learned from Cragburst and joked a bit too much. Peony responded calmly, "Probably. But are you finally free this weekend and ready to officially join the crew and take a makeup break?" "Hey, don't ignore my contribution." "Forget it." Luo Nan knew that Peony was looking down on his behavior of not putting in any effort during this time. Frankly speaking, he really hadn't put in any effort ever since he reported the whereabouts of the wing-hand bloodbat. He had received over $1 million in remuneration so far. At least half of it was a bit of a hot potato. Peony didn't bicker with him about this. She just shook the bottle again. "I can't keep you company today. I have something to do. Do you know? The World University's birthday is a holiday that belongs to us." Luo Nan was actually speechless. That's right. When he first met Peony, she came out of Acumen College. It seemed that she was a graduate student of some professor. She could be counted among the ranks of university students. Speaking up to this point, Luo Nan actually wanted to investigate Peony's background more than once. The problem was that he had to take Her Majesty Empress Wu's face into consideration. He could only act muddle-headed for now. "You want to participate in the parade too? Speaking of which, Crow, you pay a lot of attention to the lives of students." Oh. "I'm just surprised that you're not doing proper work." "Mr. Crow." "Oh, right, you can't add a suffix, right?" "Then, Mr. Partner, humans haven't evolved to the point where they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without sleep or rest. Humans are very weak. They get tired. We find time to rest. We find fun for ourselves. It is because of this that it is interesting and wonderful. So, don't obliterate the final value of human society." Luo Nan was speechless once more. He looked at her appearance. "Could it be that you've fallen out of love, right?" "Don't read too much into it, Mr. Partner. I'm enjoying my current state. Unfortunately, I can only get drunk for a while." Peony faced Crow from afar. She shook the wine bottle once more, and then she drained it in one gulp. The wine bottle smashed against the wall with a crash, and then it fell down the stairs. In the end, it was smashed into smithereens. Peony stood up against the wall. She lowered her head and curled her lips in disgust. So ugly. She was referring to the cotton slippers on her feet. They were blue-checkered men's slippers. They were old, and Luonan had a few pairs at home. The old and mediocre outer appearance really didn't match well with Peony's slender and well-proportioned feet. Speaking of which, could it be that this person became a mistress and was blocked at the door by the main wife? Did she run away in a panic? Elite women played this game these days. Well, it seemed to be common in television dramas. In reality, this was probably true love. It was a pity for those spare tires and men who admired goddesses. Luonan didn't make any moral judgments. In any case, he wasn't the one taking over. However, his feelings toward Peony had changed a bit. The element of looking up to and admiring her had lessened a bit, and he felt a bit more realistic. They were all ordinary people. Right now, he was a bit worried about Peony's state. It wasn't safe for a great beauty to stay on the recycling stratum when she was hungover, even in broad daylight. As for Peony's personal strength, he still had no idea. "Hey, where are you going?" Peony didn't answer. She turned her head and looked around. Finally, she saw her high heels lying crookedly to the side. She chuckled and casually kicked off the cotton slippers on her feet. She fitted her feet with the most suitable decorations. The bewitching patterns and shapes instantly drew out lines that were pleasing to the eye. Peony seemed to instantly regain her usual aura after putting on the shoes that belonged to her. She laughed again and waved her hand at Crow above her. Then she staggered her steps and walked out of the alley. She's definitely right. She's pretending to be calm. Luonan pondered over Peony's state of mind as he urged Crow to follow her. The alley went all the way up, slowly going from the recycling stratum to a normal street block. Perhaps the statistics of the Public Security Department were far too accurate. Or perhaps Peony had the talent to act in melodramatic dramas. It wasn't unexpected that such a great beauty would bewitch the eyes of some people. In the shadows of the building, a tall and coarse young man brushed shoulders with Peony. When he looked at her from the front, his eyes nearly popped out. He turned his head to look at her back and was stunned for a few seconds. In the end, his heart was clouded by lust. He turned around and chased after her, chuckling as he struck up a conversation. "Beautiful, where are you going?" Peony didn't pay any attention to him, but the young man's skin was thick enough. He followed closely and didn't let go. "Look at you. You didn't drink to your heart's content last night, right? I know a good place. Let's continue another round." Peony continued to move forward, but an inexplicable smile seeped out from the corner of her lips. The young man saw the side of the beauty's face suddenly come alive because of her smile, and he became more and more enchanted. He raised his hand, wanting to hook it around Peony's shoulder. Then he heard a slightly hoarse voice at this time. I know that all life here has never cultivated properly." "Huh." The young man's nose was already smelling the fragrance of a fragrant body mixed with the smell of alcohol. From his perspective, this was the smell of desire. Then the stairs came head-on towards him. Thump! The young man simply slammed into the stairs. He didn't move an inch, fainting. Peony didn't even turn her head. She continued to stagger forward, occasionally leaning on the wall. She chanted unhurriedly as she walked, persevering in the 5 desires, infatuated with love, giving birth to anger, using all desires and karma, falling into the 3 evil paths, within the 6 pleasures of reincarnation, suffering all bitter poisons, the minute form of conception, constantly growing from generation to generation. What the hell? Luonan didn't understand half of what he heard. He just felt that it was like some sort of Buddhist scripture, and the color of the words and sentences made him feel uncomfortable. Peony's footsteps came to a halt just as he was baffled. She wasn't far from the mouth of the alley. The morning sunlight cut through the gaps between the tall buildings, miraculously falling at the end of the long alley ahead. Over there was a relatively bustling street. The stream of people passed through, and the clamor entered the ears. Ink folded its wings and stopped on a certain window sill above the mouth of the alley. It continued to stare at her. But Luo Nan saw Peony smile inexplicably. She directly stepped out of the mouth of the alley, reflecting the slanting sunlight. Her smile was brilliant and bright, devoid of any depression or filth. Just like this, she naturally blended into the surging stream of people on the side of the street. However, the most eye-catching thing right now was a group of university students marching toward the City Hall Plaza. Luo Nan wasn't interested in this. He felt that the current Peony seemed to be easier to communicate with, so he asked, "You're planning on spending the day in the City Hall Plaza? Then do you have any information?" Clap, clap, clap! Clear and resounding applause rang out. Peony stood by the side of the road, forcefully applauding the marching group. She shouted loudly, "Unity!" Her drunken and wanton appearance was very annoying, but as a beauty, she had special privileges. Most of the people in the marching group were stupefied, but there were still quite a few young men who laughed loudly in agreement when they saw the encouragement of a great beauty like Peony. Unity. Peony continued to applaud with all her might. She leaned forward slightly, arched her back, and clapped her hands red. It was as if she was already immersed in the enthusiastic atmosphere. Then she shouted loudly once more, "Honor!" She was a beauty again, and she was so sincere. This time, there were even more people who responded. The sound waves had already converged into form. Honor! Faint beads of sweat appeared on Peony's forehead. She simply tore off her leather jacket and draped it over her arm. Her upper body was just a thin shirt, and it was completely unable to conceal her beautiful lines. However, what truly stirred people's hearts was her wanton and bright smile. Her snow-white teeth were revealed beneath her beautiful lips. They were so splendid. She walked into the marching group with large strides amidst this sort of smile. She was like the most familiar of friends. She opened her arms as if it was a matter of course, and she placed them on the shoulders of two students. The students just so happened to be a man and a woman. Both of them were stupefied. But at this moment, the screams and applause of the others shook the windows of the surrounding tall buildings to the point of droning. Peony faced the sky and held amidst this wave of sound. Youth! The hearts of the marching group and the surrounding spectators had already been stirred by this dazzling beauty. Most of the people were already at a loss for words. They just screamed in response. Then everyone saw the arm that pointed to the sky. Victory! Chapter 448. This Crazy Woman. Luo Nan never imagined that a beautiful woman with the style of an elite like Peony would play so wildly after getting drunk. The most important thing was that she had super powerful rallying power. Even the citizens on both sides of the street were stirred up by the scene before their eyes. Quite a few people applauded, whistled, or gave thumbs up to the parade. The atmosphere and emotions of each side interweaved and collided, pushing the entire street to a state of climax. Luo Nan didn't know what to do in this situation. Muddle-headedly following in the air for half a block, Peony's interest actually increased rather than decreased. She was truly in high spirits from playing. In the end, Luo Nan felt that he really couldn't keep up with her anymore. He called out in secret, "Hey, are you planning on marching all the way to the municipal plaza?" Upon hearing this, Peony raised her head. Disregarding her current situation of being the center of attention, she extended her hand and pointed straight at the ink in the air. Amidst another wave of cheers, she laughed loudly. "Bet your college life on it. Do it. Damn, this woman is really crazy." Though he said this, Luo Nan was actually quite envious. First, it was Peony's innate talent as a natural leader. Her affinity, rallying power, and inciting power were all off the charts. With just a few vague words, she was able to make thousands of students and citizens dance with her baton. Secondly, it was probably that wanton and unrestrained attitude. This woman clearly hid deep, gloomy emotions in her heart, but the moment she walked into the crowd, it was as if all the obstacles had been swept away. Looking at her smile, it was as if there was bright sunshine shining directly in. Should he call her scheming or strong-willed? In any case, this was completely different from using alcohol to vent one's emotions. Cat Eyes should seriously learn. Though Luo Nan was the least qualified to say these words. Luo Nan's main body had just walked out of Acumen College while he was paying attention to his partners going on strike. But where should he go next? He stood at the school gate, hesitating. Peony was the one in charge of communicating with Trigate security. Without this link, Luo Nan would be unable to receive support from that side. Was he really going to wander around the city alone and cast his net a few times? Luo Nan's wristband suddenly vibrated. There was a call coming in, and there was even a video request. Luo Nan swept a glance and rushed to connect. And on the virtual screen, Luo Shuqing's face was serious but pale. She did not look well. Where did you sleep last night? Not in Blue Bay. No, I'm at Ocean Sky Cloud City. Luo Nan answered cautiously. What for? It's mainly because it's more convenient for me to go to school today. So I stayed with a few friends nearby. I forgot that it's Saturday. I'm at the school gate now. Luo Nan felt that there was nothing to hide. He even raised his hand to shine a circle in all directions to show his sincerity. He let his aunt see the surrounding environment. Even with his attitude, Luo Shuqing's expression was still serious. She seemed to be asking and confirming. Was it Emoya who was in Blue Bay last night? She seems to be there quite often recently. Luo Nan absolutely wouldn't take the initiative to admit that he had contacted Emoya last night, so he spoke vaguely. But even so, his aunt did not let him off easily. Her tone was unusually stern. You clearly know that Emoya has been staying out with those scoundrels and hasn't returned, yet you still make things convenient for her. Do you think she's not having enough fun? How could I? Luo Nan cried out, feeling wronged. My sister wants the access rights. I can't just not give it to her. Recently, I had been living in the Nade district, so how could I have the time to care about Blue Bay? I haven't cleaned it for a long time. That depends on the situation. That's your house. It's passed down from your ancestors. My heart hurts when I think about how it's been messed with by those fellows who don't know what's good for them. Take back your access rights. What was going on? It must be said that his aunt had been extremely dissatisfied with Emoya staying out at night recently, but she didn't have any intentions of squeezing her daughter's living space outside. She couldn't bear it today. Luo Nan scratched his head a bit when he saw his aunt's unsightly expression, but he knew that he absolutely couldn't go against the Grand Secretary's will right now. He hurriedly said, Don't be angry. Taking it back is just a matter of operation. I'll do it right away. Wait for me to leave. Huh? You're in Blue Bay right now. Luo Nan finally discovered that the background of the video was a bit familiar. He wiped his cold sweat. He never thought that his aunt would actually get up early in the morning and kill her way to Blue Bay community to block the door. Clearly, his aunt had lost all patience with Emoya's lifestyle. Even if she carried the title of a feudal parent, she still wanted to forcefully intervene. Seriously, is my sister still alive? She ran off with her guitar. There's no one over there. Then I'll send you the passkey. You can deal with it as you see fit. No need. Why would I need the passkey for a house under your name? And I can't differentiate between inside and outside. Luo Shuqing clearly knew that Luo Nan was deliberately trying to be obedient, but this scene was far too rare. Even though Luo Shuqing was in a terrible mood, she still couldn't help slowing down her tone. There's no need to curry favor and act cute here. I don't buy it. Emoya's way of doing things is very excessive. You, her accomplice, won't be able to escape. Of course, there's also Emopeng. I remember every single good deed you three have done. Let's go back and talk about them one by one. Please calm your anger. There's nothing to say. As long as you can make my sister fully realize her mistakes, I'll be willing to accept a few beatings. Luo Nan could sell out his sister in minutes, without any pressure. And this sort of jesting and joking method was much better than being yes-man. Luo Shuqing finally hooked her lips. You've become quite glib lately. Do you have a girlfriend? Luo Nan blurted out. How is that possible? He had learned quite a few dirty jokes from Papercut and Cragburst. Cat Eyes was also someone who dared to say anything. Mixing around with that lawless ability user would cause some changes in his speech habits. And this seemed to be the most effective way, right? Luo Shuqing really did divert his attention. I heard Mo Peng say that you have quite a good luck with women at Acumen College. He's just jealous that I'm being taken care of by my senior. Okay, I know. No matter how charming the children of the Luo family are, there's no problem with their hearts. However, you need to learn some skills in getting along with people. Don't be so straightforward. You'll hurt yourself and others. That's not good. Yes, you're right. It's not a problem for you to have a few more friends, but don't learn from your sister. Don't fall head first into those circles. I won't. Luo Nan laughed dryly. He said a few more words and finally hung up the phone. He didn't stop after that. He immediately found Mo Ya's number and dialed it. However, there was no response from the other side. Did I just lose contact? What kind of trouble did I get myself into? Luo Nan called twice, but he didn't get a response. He couldn't help but scratch his head. His aunt's emotions were controlled quite well when she was talking to him. But if she wasn't truly furious, she wouldn't have vented her anger on him. Luo Nan was a bit regretful right now. He should have made a trip to Blue Bay last night when he passed through the Riverwu district to understand the situation. He paced a few steps in front of the school gate, his hand pressed to his ear. He considered finding a skilled expert like Bamboo Pole to lock onto Mo Ya's position. Was this making a mountain out of a molehill? His wristband vibrated just as he hesitated. He subconsciously connected the call and Mo Ya's voice came through. Chapter 449. You're looking for me? Luo Nan let out a sigh of relief when he heard Mo Ya's voice. Then his anger flared up. You're the one who's looking for me, to take the blame. What are you talking about? Mo Ya's background was noisy. The sound of a piano and drums joined together. It seemed like someone was calling her. She responded with two sounds before turning around to talk to Luo Nan. I'm rehearsing right now. I'll contact you in a bit. Luo Nan looked up at the sky and sighed. Mo Ya, you sure have a big heart. The high priest has exploded and you still have the heart to rehearse. Are you going to hold a concert for 10,000 people? 100,000 people level. Screw your 100,000. You're dreaming. Yeah, I'm dreaming. I'm hanging up. Mo Ya, why don't you try calling my name again? So what? Mo Ya, you tricked me. Tisk, little brother, you're such a good boy. Come over to the municipal plaza at noon. I'll treat you to a meal and introduce you to some beauties. Ow. Luo Nan was a bit stupefied by Mo Ya's unpredictable attitude, but he soon recalled that this was Mo Ya's usual trick. He laughed and was about to retort when Mo Ya said, All right, don't come too early. Our practice venue is rented until 2 o'clock. We'll be racing against time. There's really a show? What do you think? I'll contact you at noon. I'm hanging up. Then the call was cut off. Luo Nan stood at the school gate and sighed after a while. Today's plan was doomed to fail. He spoke to Chini Kuin and rode a security vehicle to the municipal plaza. It was a bit early to go over, but his previous plan had been destroyed. He didn't know what to do for a time. Luo Nan's consciousness shifted to Ink's location in the car and locked onto Peony. If Peony were to follow the procession, they would most likely reach the municipal plaza. For safety's sake, he needed to maintain a distance from her. But what in the world was this sister doing? She was stirring up a storm in the procession just a moment ago, but she immediately left the procession after receiving a phone call. Luo Nen ran to a relatively sparse location with a few flashes of light. Ink followed him out of habit. Peony displayed her extraordinary keenness once more. "You're here again? How did she know that I just left for a while?" Luo Nan was a bit stupefied. He replied, "What are you going back and forth for?" Peony stood in the shadow of a tall building, far away from the clamor of the crowd. She smiled as she looked at the surging stream of people, fulfilling everyone's wishes. For them, this level of achievement was enough. In any case, most of them didn't want to do anything. Even if some of them were like this, they didn't have enough awareness to pay the price. It's not even as good as your attitude towards work. Even. That wasn't a good word at all. Peony put on her leather jacket again and laughed happily. "Including me, I'm not as good as you, all right? That's why it's good to participate. It's more valuable to work with you. Thank you for thinking highly of me, but now it's my turn. When you said you have something to do, are you referring to watching the parade with me? Go to the municipal square on the way." "Municipal square? Where are you going?" "You're right. That place will be a good place soon. The city government will cry if they hear this, as long as it's meaningful to us. This is indeed a good opportunity." Luo Nan was suddenly unable to keep up with Peony's train of thought. Opportunity? What opportunity? Peony pulled her hair back into a ponytail. She bit a rubber band in her mouth and cast a sidelong glance at Ink. "It looks like I overestimated you, Mr. Partner." Luo Nan didn't care about Peony's evaluation. He knew early on that this Miss Peony could toss him in the dust in terms of planning and scheming. She was just stating the facts. His attitude was upright and very calm. "You don't need to evaluate my thinking ability. You just need to provide the conditions for me to reveal my search and sensing ability. I believe that this is the meaning of us being partners." "Oh, that makes sense." Peony really did seriously consider this for a moment. Then she nodded. "That's what the firm told me in the beginning. How could I forget? I'm sorry. Maybe I drank too much last night. Of course, it's more likely that you haven't fulfilled your duties during this time, giving me some sort of misconception. Maybe." Peony tidied up her ponytail and stepped on the high heels on her feet. "I need to change this too, but let me first explain the so-called opportunity. Since we're going to the municipal square, as long as it's not a particularly exhausting matter, we can completely handle the related search work. After all, this is an opportunity to collect sufficient samples." "Samples?" "That's right. 3 samples. It's just like what's described in the records of the operation. After this period of incubation, the probability of a 3rd-stage mutant infection appearing has already reached a statistically significant significance. Speak in human terms. In other words, due to the invasion of this batch of mutants, the ecosphere of Sia City has already received serious contamination. Affected by this, it's very likely that a primitive mutant has already appeared by our side. Its original form might be a rat, a wild dog, a crow, or even a person. But in the end, it will become a monster with an intense desire for destruction and an instinct for reproduction. And then, the municipal government is still sealing off the information. Then a biohazard crisis type of blockbuster will play out in Sia City. When that time comes, we definitely won't be able to get the follow-up payment. The firm's reputation will pretty much be wiped clean. I'll lose my job and my partner will probably have to change employers. Of course, this is the worst-case scenario. This demonstration is truly righteous. It's also our opportunity." Peony pointed at the gradually departing procession. "Look, a procession like this can be seen on over half the streets of the city. There are a total of 954,000 or so registered university students in the Sia City region. They come from over 70 institutions of higher learning. For major districts are spread throughout the north, south, east and west of the city. The number of people participating in the demonstration is over 100,000. And if we include those fellows who join in the fun, the police and civil servants who are responsible for maintaining order, the merchants who seize business opportunities and service personnel, etc., the number of people involved will certainly exceed 200,000. Oh, right, there's still a performance tonight. Singers, famous actors, popular boy and girl groups, virtual idols, and so on. By the peak hour of the evening, the number of people gathered within a 5-kilometer radius of the municipal plaza will be between 300 and 500,000 people. Do you believe it or not? Luonan didn't respond. He couldn't help but think about what a canned sardine crowd of 500,000 people would look like. At that time, the residents of every corner of Xia City will appear in the plaza. A sampling rate calculated from the total population of 90 million people in the main city district of Xia City is quite reasonable, whether it's from a sociological or biological perspective. Luonan had a general idea, but he still needed to confirm it. What do you mean? Chapter 450. The atmosphere of Xia City in early winter was abnormally fiery because of the university student parade. The closer one got to the municipal plaza, the higher the heat. At 10 o'clock in the morning, there were already over 20 university parades stationed in the plaza and surrounding areas. Under the illumination of the winter sun, the weather could be considered fine. The temperature was neither hot nor cold. The university students, still in their energetic phase, began to wave slogans in the municipal plaza. They chatted with the surrounding military and police, testing each other's limits. Most people knew that today's parade was just a show. Professional skills and cooperation from all sides were indispensable in order to have a happy and brilliant show. Aside from reaching a consensus on this point, everything else was like a plate of loose sand. Luonan found a leisure library on the outskirts of the municipal plaza. There was a tea house, a water bar, and a hot drink shop inside. Most importantly, the window position near the plaza was very good. It just so happened that the municipal plaza and most of the eastern area could be seen. He casually tapped the pages of the e-book on the translucent coffee table. 99% of his energy was placed on the plaza, searching for suspicious targets according to Peony's perfect plan. Then he confirmed, perfect my ass. There were parades, spectators, passers-by, and so on around the plaza. There were only several tens of thousands of people, if all of them were counted. But the stream of people shuttling back and forth had their respective life sketches interwoven together to construct a changing star atlas. It was like an e-book on the table. The words were dense, and page after page flashed past. It was dizzying to read. Right now, the number of people was far from reaching its peak. After the parade and the carnival began at night, it was very likely that there would be 500,000 people. They would be like sardines squeezed into a narrow area with a radius of 5 to 6 kilometers. The range was not a problem, but the density of stars in the living starry sky of 500,000 people was something that not even the center of the Milky Way could compare to. He squeezed out all of his brain juice. Could he color the target? Too chaotic. Too chaotic. Luonan's fingers lightly tapped on the table. He changed his tempo and volume to dispel the fidgety emotions in his mind. The order of the plaza was very chaotic right now, but the hearts of people were even more chaotic. Luonan had observed the parade that Peony had teased through Ink's perspective. Several hundred people advanced passionately. Their surging emotions formed a layer of scorching, incorporeal flames. They had already formed some sort of initial fusion, some sort of embryonic form of a system. They seemed to converge, but in fact, they could be contrasted to highlight the minute differences and contradictions of individuals. The procession in the plaza did not have this condition at all. Luonan could only begin by searching the target itself. However, the characteristics of the first, second, and third stages of a mutated infection were all different, especially the most likely second stage, which was the incubation period in which the infection had not yet completely mutated. At this stage, The difference between the target and a normal creature was very small. It required a high degree of precision and a large amount of experience to make a judgment. Luo Nen had the information provided by Tri-Gate security by his side. He had used the standards of the root receptacle, root nature, and root trigger taught by Gym Master Xiao to distinguish them. But this was not enough. The technique of distinguishing between the nature and mechanism of a tool also required a large amount of experience as a foundation. Luo Nan's current accumulation was far from enough, not to mention that mental sensing had always been a very personal experience. It was very hard to truly comprehend it just by looking at the information. He needed to discuss this with someone, but the advisor, Peony, was still traveling leisurely on the road. It was said that she would arrive in the afternoon. Luo Nan stood by the window and observed for a while, consuming nearly all of his interest. There was also a lack of breakthroughs in his train of thought. He was simply wasting time and tea. He picked up a teacup and took a sip, slightly relaxing his nerves. Then he felt a weak stimulation nearby. It was not a target, but it was non-hostile, chattering. Luo Nan turned his head to look, accurately capturing the source of the stimulation. There was an aisle and a row of tables, and he saw a familiar face. The other party's expression was a bit stiff when they met Luo Nan's gaze, but they still nodded politely in greeting. Luo Nan responded and then ignored them. However, the other party was still within the range of his perception. There were two people at the other party's table. They were both women, and they had been talking private all this time. They had been talking about him since just now. "Xian, or who's this? You're frozen stiff. Don't mind me. No way. Don't tell me this is your ideal type. Turner will cry, right?" I said, "Don't mind me." But he looks so weak. He's like a little submissive. Look at what he's wearing. It's an autumn sweater. The color is gray. It looks like some school uniform. He's always reading with his head down. He has no friends. He's all alone. He's a typical depressed person. Shut up. Hey, you're being too protective. Are you secretly in love with him? Big-headed fish. Okay, let's not talk about him. Let's not talk about him. What do you think about the seat I booked? The plaza will certainly be a mess at night. This place is the best. It's quiet, and the atmosphere is pretty good. It's more suitable for a woman like you. Speaking of which, that person is sitting there. It's fate. Hey, where are you going? The restroom. The conversation ended, and a young girl with a slender figure stood up from the table. She wore fashionable clothes and left with a taut face. However, she shot a glance at Luo Nan before she left. Unfortunately, their gazes met once more. She could only nod with a stiff expression. Then she turned around and left in a hurry. She was Yu Qin. She was the second generation of a certain pharmaceutical company. Last time at Aurora Cloud City, she was Luo Nan's guest. Her older brother Yu Zheng's performance was terrible. He had caused quite a bit of trouble, but she had always been very calm and smart. She behaved with propriety. The impression she gave others was okay. Luo Nan paid more attention to the reservation information Yu Qin revealed during her conversation with her companion. He tapped on the table, and sure enough, he saw that the reservation time was displayed. It was from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. the next day. In other words, he could only stay at this seat until 6 p.m. at most. Then this place would belong to someone else. Should he find another place? Hold on. Since the two young girls could think of this, then the others. Luo Nan immediately entered keywords such as municipal plaza, parade, performance, and so on. Sure enough, the reservation service had already been activated for the relevant window viewing seats, and the number of available seats was rapidly disappearing. He only hesitated for a bit at two relatively remote seats. Game over. Forget it. With his mental senses, it didn't really matter if the location was good or bad. Perhaps it was even safer. Luo Nan sighed. He leaned his back against the back of the soft chair and closed his eyes to rest. But he felt that something was wrong in the next second. He opened his eyes and saw Yuqin's companion walking over with light steps. Her round face was smiling, and she had very cute baby fat. She wore a pair of ladies' sunglasses on the tip of her nose. They were crooked, and she looked as if she had stolen them from home to play. She looked very young and tender. However, she was quite tall. She wore a loose pink windbreaker paired with black pencil pants and white sneakers. Her frame was very lively. Chapter 451. It was hard to imagine that this girl, who called herself Fathead Fish, wouldn't care about anything else. She started off with a bunch of beeps. Luo Nan was stunned for a moment when faced with such a familiar person. He politely got up and touched Bayu's hand. He introduced himself, Luo Nan. "Hello, we know each other now." As she spoke, Bayu sat in the seat across from Luo Nan. She giggled as she looked at him. Her eyes seemed to be shining. "How long have you known Sienna?" "I know all of Sienna's friends, but I've never seen you before." "I'm a student at Acumen College. I used to be at 6th High. I also used to be at 6th High." Bayu suddenly became excited. "It's fate. But how come we've never met before?" Luo Nan laughed. "Do you know Emo Han? I'm her cousin." "Hanin's cousin? Isn't that a little fatty called Emo Pum?" "I'm the other one." "Oh, what a coincidence. I'm also a transfer student. I transferred to Xiqing District 2 years ago for the sake of making my debut. But you should be pretty low-key in 6th High, right?" "Yeah, I don't really come out to play." Bayu's heart was filled with curiosity. She was a young girl driven by curiosity. She didn't have any scheming thoughts. Luo Nan suddenly felt that Yuqin's circle of friends was pretty good. She didn't hate anyone other than her blood-related older brother. It was said to judge people by their friends. Just from this point alone, Yuqin was quite good. In any case, the perfect plan was ruined. There was still some time before Emoya's treat. Luo Nan was bored, so he chatted to pass the time. "You just mentioned making your debut. Are you an artist?" "Humph." Bayu made a complicated yet adorable gesture. "BHD's youngest, Bayu, will be joining us." How. Seeing Luo Nan's stupidly lack of reaction, Bayu's smiling face collapsed. "I knew it. You don't belong to my fan club." "Of course, I don't have many fans to begin with." Luo Nan was a bit embarrassed. "Sorry, I really don't understand this. BHD is the name of the group?" "That's right, Bobblehead. But you just need to remember to shake your head doll. The name is easy to remember." "But it's still the 18th line." As she spoke, Bayu shook her head. Her movements matched her cute aura perfectly, and her body swayed rhythmically. However, Luo Nan's gaze accidentally swept over her chest, which was completely incompatible with her age. This was because the trench coat had opened up after sitting down, and the thin layer of fabric inside could not hide the full curves. Acting like this at such a young age was simply against the rules. Luo Nan didn't have any crooked thoughts, but he was a bit embarrassed. He hurriedly averted his gaze and took the initiative to speak in order to conceal it. "You and Yuqin came out to watch the parade." Bayu waved her finger. "Hey, although we are an unknown, we are still a duo that debuted. Do you see that? In the middle of the square, the scenery will be built in the afternoon. That will be our stage. Don't forget to help us tonight." As she spoke, she sighed again. "We can't talk for too long. I still have to meet up with my sisters in a while to practice more. To the square." This sentence inexplicably made Bayu laugh out loud. She burst out in laughter and almost threw her glasses off her nose bridge. It was on this building. The company is worried about traffic jams, so they rented a floor for practice. When rehearsals begin, we can use the underground passageway to go backstage. Rented a floor. Luo Nan was a bit shocked. He remembered that this was a large office building that occupied a large area. How much would it cost to rent it for a day? For an unknown girl group like BHD, would the cost of a night's performance be even a fraction of this? Bai Yu understood Luo Nan's thoughts and said, "Our company is very large. There are 5 or 6 groups participating tonight. There are even big singers and big singers." Luo Nan grunted and asked casually, "Who is it?" Bai Yu was about to answer when hurried footsteps and a deep male voice approached at the same time. "Doll!" "Oh my!" Bai Yu's first reaction was to jump up and lean against the previous table, but she didn't have the time to do so. Someone blocked her way. The person that appeared on the walkway was a man in formal attire. He was roughly 30 years old, had a straight face and had a serious expression. He faced Bai Yu directly. "You said that you came to pick up the teacher. Where's the teacher?" Sit down. Are you afraid that people won't see you?" The man in formal attire scolded in a low voice and indicated for Bai Yu to sit down. He sat down as well, just in front of Luo Nan. Only now did he cast his gaze towards Luo Nan. The meaning of scrutiny was extremely thick, and his thick eyebrows were knotted together. "Your friend? Dating? How is that possible?" Bai Yu nearly jumped up again, but she retreated in defeat under the gaze of the man in formal attire. She could only speak pitifully. "Brother Jing, you've misunderstood. This is my best friend's husband." "Husband my ass!" Chatting with Bai Yu was very relaxing, but being entangled with her was boring. Luo Nan wanted to communicate with this guardian-like man, but before he could get up, he noticed that Yu Qin had returned from the restroom. She didn't see Bai Yu when she returned to her seat and looked around blankly. Bai Yu waved at her fiercely. She was mindful of the surrounding environment, so she secretly shouted, "Xian don't get lost." "Over here." Yu Qin turned her head when she heard this. She was separated by an aisle and saw that Bai Yu was actually sitting together with Luo Nan. She was immediately stupefied. Bai Yu shouted at her, "Hurry up and come claim your boyfriend. Don't let Brother Jing misunderstand. Aren't we together?" Luo Nan lowered his head to look at the number of cups on the table. He knew that this fathead fish was probably in a real tragedy. Brother Jing clearly saw through this, but he didn't say anything. His gaze shifted back and forth between Luo Nan and Yu Qin. He seemed to be deep in thought. Yu Qin hesitated for 2 seconds. In the end, she walked over and stood by the table. She quietly shot a glance at Luo Nan during this process. Then she slightly lowered her head. She was probably trying to find a balance between respect and calmness, but unfortunately she failed. Her slightly fast heartbeat, her controlled breathing, her nervous system's inhibition and counter-inhibition. Every detail exposed her nervous state of mind. Bai Yu wouldn't be able to see through this, but the man in formal attire across from her would probably be able to see some clues. But then again, this man gave Luo Nan a strange feeling. Luo Nan thought for a bit and took advantage of the situation to get up. He faced Yu Qin and said, "You can sit inside. This is..." Luo Nan was asking Bai Yu, but Yu Qin, who was still standing there without moving, quivered. She took half a step forward and said softly, "This is Mingtang Culture's manager, Mr. Hai Jing. Hai Jing?" Luo Nan was curious. Before Luo Nan could figure it out, Hai Jing's serious face relaxed from astonishment and bewilderment. In the end, it transformed into a carefree smile. "Nanster, is that you?" Chapter 452. Upon closer inspection, the title was just a knock on the door. The true key was the smile on Hai Jing's face. He opened his mouth wide and revealed his teeth. His unrestrained and smooth expression instantly broke through the solemn temperament of his formal attire. It caused the clean face before Luo Nan's eyes to overlap with a large face with sideburns. Hai Jing, the first lead singer of Mountain Stream, the band M.O. you belong to. That was 6 years ago. M.O. you was still in her 3rd year of high school at the time. She had just joined the band and obtained the position of melody guitarist with her skillful technique. Luo Nan was just a brat who wasn't even 10 years old. He had yet to start researching formatting theory. In today's sense, life had yet to begin. However, Luo Nan still had some impressions in his chaotic and blurry memories. Hai Jing, the lead singer of the band at the time, had a resounding and clear voice. It could be said that he had a gorgeous voice. He was the type that Luo Nan could accept in the noisy and chaotic underground rock circle. It could be said that the entire Mountain Stream band style was built around this lead singer. Mo Ye's gorgeous solo performance, known as the Palace on Strings, brought out the best in Luo Nan's style. Many times they would be called low-level, vulgar, and trendy dogs in the circle because of this. Mo Ye had cried because of this. The one who had hugged and comforted her back then was Hai Jing. Luo Nan had always been conservative. This kind of intimate and caring attitude was already beyond his expectations. So Luo Nan had the impression that Hai Jing had been a candidate for brother-in-law for quite some time. But later, this potential brother-in-law suddenly disappeared from her memory. TSK, the human memory mechanism, was really strange. A small trigger was able to make the already gray and gray images regain color and flow. Luo Nan was immersed in his memories. He seemed to have returned to that ignorant and clean world. There were some subtle changes in his emotions. He subconsciously laughed. Brother Jing, long time no see. You're actually a manager now. Hai Jing laughed. You came to see Mo Ye's performance. She said she would treat me to lunch. Huh. Then thank me. Hai Jing pointed at his own nose. I was the one who booked the restaurant. Didn't you know? Mo Ye and the others just signed a 2-year contract with Mingtang. I just so happened to be in charge of today's performance. You signed a contract? Luo Nan was a bit embarrassed. He really didn't know. Just a week ago, they performed well at the Manching Music Festival, and the company was optimistic about their prospects. Has Mo you been hiding outside for the past few days? Hee, I've really offended my aunt. Hai Jing's deep understanding of Mo you made Luo Nan vaguely believe that Mo you had always been here for the past few years. Hai Jing nodded. He pondered for a moment as if he was considering something. In the end, he pointed upwards. Mo Ye and the others are rehearsing now. They are in the same place as Dal and the others. Do you want to go and take a look? Before Luo Nan could respond, Baiyu was already dumbstruck. Why? Why can't I invite Qin Xian? Hai Jing glanced at her. Shangshi's contract is a management contract, while yours is a training contract. That is the difference. Baiyu was immediately defeated, but then she saw that Luo Nan was looking in the direction of Hai Jing's finger. Luo Nan had a very focused appearance, and she couldn't help but spit. Hey, there are still over 10 floors. Of course, Luo Nan wouldn't say that he had locked onto Mo Ye's position through his mental senses. He just nodded and smiled at Baiyu before asking Hai Jing, Is it convenient? Hai Jing seemed to have thought things through. This is Shangshi's first performance since they transformed from an underground band. The scene tonight will be huge. I'm worried that they'll be nervous. Having a family nearby will certainly help. I heard that it's a scale of several 100,000 people. The company estimates that it can reach 1 million people at its peak. Rock bands naturally have an advantage in this kind of occasion. It's an excellent opportunity. 1 million people. Luo Nan clicked his tongue. Mo Ye, that fellow. She really went wherever there was excitement. But was their band already at the level where they could perform in public at a large-scale event with 1 million people? How about this? Touch me with your wristband, and I'll give you the authority. Since the security around the plaza has been upgraded, we can only use a face-to-face invitation to increase the authority. Luckily, I still have a spot on my side. Dal, what are you doing? Baiyu withdrew her finger and had an innocent expression. Brother Jing, are you trying to ruin their date? Are you trying to break up an affectionate couple? This wasn't the end. Luo Nan rolled his eyes. Next to him, Yu Qin took a quiet breath. She raised the teapot and poured tea for Luo Nan. Her demeanor was refined and gentle, and it matched perfectly with Baiyu. Yu Qin's appearance was definitely because She still had lingering fears from the conflict last time. She was deliberately acting low and small. Luo Nan felt that it was pointless. He waved his hand and was about to speak, but Hai Jing spoke first. 1 is a hire. 2 is also a hire. It just so happens that the company is short on manpower right now. I'll just take in 2 temporary workers. Brother Jing, you have a lot of knowledge. Bai Yu gasped in admiration. She gave Hai Jing a thumbs up and winked at Yu Qin. Yu Qin forced a smile and took another deep breath. She stole a glance at Luo Nan and remained silent. Hai Jing quickly shared the authority with them. Then he got up and said, "Let's not waste time. Let's go back. I'll tell you guys about the things to take note of on the way." "Hey, doll, you're not done yet?" Bai Yu raised her head and revealed a careful smile. "Brother Jing, did you forget about the teacher?" Hai Jing was a bit startled. He was a bit embarrassed under the gazes of Luo Nan and the other 2. He slapped his forehead and sat back down. "I almost forgot. I'm going to make a phone call." The call connected a few seconds later. Then he hung up. "I've already arrived. I've used up my authority. Bai Yu, bring out yours. It seems that this is the reason for me to approve your leave, right?" Bai Yu giggled. She stretched her neck to size up the entrance. "I don't see anyone. Did you guys drink too much again? If we get the smell of alcohol from our bodies, Brother Jing, you'll have to help us explain to the company." It could be seen that Hai Jing had a close relationship with Bai Yu and the other artists. Work was work. Friendship was friendship. Hai Jing could clearly distinguish between the 2 and complement each other. It seemed that he was doing quite well as an agent. However, it was a pity that the loud and clear lead singer of Mountain Creek would probably never be able to come back. Luo Nan was a bit lost in thought, but he was soon awakened by a stimulus. His brows furrowed. Bai Yu had already locked onto her target. "She's coming. She's coming. Teacher, over here." Luo Nan turned his head and saw a woman around 30 years old walking over. She wore no makeup, but her slightly brown skin was extremely lustrous. It didn't give off a dark feeling. She wore a white long-sleeved t-shirt with a jacket draped over her shoulder. She wore dark blue bloomers paired with nude high heels. She was dressed to the point of being a complete mess. She looked very confident and at ease, but in essence. Hai Jing stood up to greet her. He called her teacher, but he didn't mention her name. It sounded a bit awkward. Bai Yu also chuckled as she leaned over. She hugged the person across the reading table. "Teacher, it's been a week. You must teach me how to take care of my skin this time." "Oh, right, let me introduce you." Bai Yu enthusiastically introduced them. "These 2 are—" "There's no need for introductions. I've met them before." Yu Qin had already stood up. She bowed and greeted the person. "Hello, Teacher Cat Eyes." "You still remember my name? How thoughtful." The person had a subtle smile on her lips. Her gaze didn't linger on Yu Qin. Instead, she took the opportunity to look at Luo Nan, who was slowly getting up. When their gazes met, her complicated smile finally blossomed. "Hey, boss, your new target?" Luo Nan had a serious expression. "Teacher Cat Eyes, don't joke with me." He could only respond like this. Otherwise, he would have no way of explaining things to Hai Jing and Bai Yu. Hai Jing appeared to be quite shrewd, but Bai Yu was already stupefied. "You guys know each other? The boss behind the scenes of your teacher's studio is Luo Nan?" "It can't be." Luo Nan finally laughed, but his laugh was very powerless. "I said it was just a joke. As for whether it was a joke or the cause and effect, Cat Eyes, take care of it for me first." The casual and confident-looking woman before him was none other than Cat Eyes. Her public identity was that of a dance teacher. In the inner world, she was a registered member of the Ability User Society. She was a psychic sensing awakened, and her most proficient ability was long-range perception. However, from Luo Nan's perspective, this female awakened, who was in the prime of her life, had the most significant attribute. She was a believer on the staff level under his formatting theory. She was a component of a large production line that provided him with an unending supply of soul strength. Cat Eyes had not met Luo Nan since the incident at Aurora Cloud City. However, the connection between them was much more frequent than before. They continued to break in. Luo Nan took the initiative. He didn't care much. Cat Eyes was completely passive. She thought quite a bit. Over a dozen days passed. Whether Cat Eyes was happy or not, she began to get used to the existence of a boss. This little bastard didn't sign a contract. He didn't pay her wages. He didn't give her any chance to leave. A staff member? A slave? The only thing that made Cat Eyes rejoice over was that this boss, Luo Nan, was quite undisciplined in his management. Luo Nan generally wouldn't give her trouble. Even if he did, the difficulty wasn't too high. Cat Eyes didn't want to change this. So when her emotions stabilized, she maintained this state of interaction with Luo Nan. She didn't give Luo Nan any trouble. He and I have been practicing dancing recently. He's a guy who really knows how to make bets. I lost, so I changed the way I address him. As she spoke, she shot a glance at Yuqin. Yuqin cleverly lowered her eyelids. She acted as if she didn't see or hear anything. Hai Jing laughed. So that's how it is. Bai Yu asked in a silly manner, "What kind of bet?" "Bet on your life," or something like that. Cat Eyes laughed as she stroked Bai Yu's face. "Let's go. From the moment we meet, time starts. Pay by the minute." The awkward conversation came to an end. Cat Eyes obtained permission from Bai Yu. The group immediately followed Hai Jing. They left the library and entered the private elevator of the building. After swiping the permission, the elevator locked onto the floor and went up automatically. Hai Jing made arrangements in the elevator. Teacher and Bai Yu will go to the practice room. Nanster and Yuqin will first come with me to change their nameplates. Sign a temporary contract as well. This way, you will have the status of a staff member. You won't be too conspicuous. It will be more convenient to enter and exit. So complicated. Bai Yu sighed a little. Luo Nan expressed his thanks. "Sorry for the trouble, Brother Jing." "It's nothing. You guys coming is the same as helping me." "Huh. Haha, don't worry. You won't get tired even if there's work." Chapter 453. The door to the practice room opened a crack, and the scattered notes floated out. Under the guidance of the bass, the clear chords of the guitar streaked through 2 bars before breaking off. Then came the sound of discussion. "Look, the effect is better without plugging in. You're using an acoustic guitar in a 1,000,000-person venue? Aren't you trusting the organizers' equipment too much? The effect indoors and outdoors can't be compared. A small venue and a large venue are 2 different things. The acoustic guitar plan is too radical. I don't approve of it. But we need to highlight the harmonies. Wrong. We need to ignite the atmosphere. We can't ruin the entire song for the sake of 2 bars of harmonies. Don't argue for now. Let's find the feeling. Let's try a different amplifier." Then came a series of chaotic noises. When the notes floated out once more, harmony was added in the room. But it didn't even last a bar before breaking off again. Arguments arose once more. Luo Nan laughed and shook his head. Then he closed the door, not touching the restless and trembling atmosphere inside. He turned to look at Hai Jing behind him. "They're really nervous." Hai Jing was a bit surprised. "We're not going in." "We're not going in. I'm afraid, Mo, you will smash us with her guitar." "Not yet, but it's hard to say for the others." Hai Jing touched the door handle and gave up. "Then let's wait for the practice to end. After all, they're an underground band. Their nature has changed after signing with Mingtang culture. Right now is their period of transformation. It's not wrong to be nervous. Did they sign a contract or personal relationships? In other words, they'll pay more attention to commercial development, right? Yes, the trend." Hai Jing let out a light breath. "I don't know if bringing them out from the underground circle is a good or bad thing. With Emoya, his cousin who was obsessed with bands, around, Luo Nen knew a few things about the underground circle, no matter how much he immersed himself in his own world. Signing with an underground band was a relatively sensitive topic. Many bands looked forward to signing a contract with a management company or a music company. They wanted to walk from the underground to the surface, but the traditional style of buying records but not selling their bodies and the habit of despising the trend was still very powerful. It would be fine if they really soared to the top, but the worst thing was that they would be rejected by the underground circle and the pop circle at the same time. Many bands would collapse at this stage. It was just like the awakening of supernatural powers. If they succeeded, everything would be fine, but if they failed, they would be stuck at the edge of two worlds. Forget about the pressure from the outside world. Just the confusion about where they stood was enough to make them suffer. Luo Nan shook his head. A sliver of heaven, a sliver of earth. Hai Jing chuckled when he saw Luo Nan's appearance. He rubbed Luo Nan's head in passing. Little fellow, when did you become so mature? Luo Nan was stupefied. Hai Jing was a bit embarrassed when she saw Luo Nan's expression. Don't mind me. My hand slipped. It's okay. You're the big brother. Luo Nan didn't care at all. I remember calling you uncle at the very beginning. You had a beard back then. Yeah, you still remember. Hai Jing grinned and pulled a bit of distance away from Luo Nan. He leaned against the opposite wall of the practice room and took out an exquisite box from his pocket. There were 3 e-cigarettes arranged neatly inside. He picked one up and put it in his mouth. His words were a bit unclear. Back then you were really muddle-headed. You looked stupid. The temperature of his mouth triggered the switch of the e-cigarette as he spoke. There was a crackling sound, and the front of the e-cigarette was slightly red. Smoke rose in spirals. Luo Nan watched the red light on and off the front of the e-cigarette, and some memories from the depths of his brain resurfaced. Maybe. You even said that my surname shouldn't be Gong. I should be called Gong. If I don't ring, I won't ring. Then you splashed your fruit juice on my face and extinguished the cigarette. Oh, that was my first time visiting your house. I stole a puff in the yard. Why did I have to talk so much? So embarrassing. Hai Jing waved his hand. He stuck his head to the wall and forced his face to the ceiling. He looked like he didn't have the face to see anyone. Perhaps this was also called not being proper. Luo Nan was more familiar with this image compared to Hai Jing's well-dressed suit. He laughed again and said to Hai Jing, "There's no band that doesn't want to sign a contract. I don't know about Emoya. My aunt has always felt that the underground circle is too chaotic. If she knew that Emoya signed with a proper management company, she should be happy. The underground circle is chaotic. This circle isn't peaceful either." The e-cigarette in Hai Jing's mouth shook up and down. Mingtang culture is facing a change in its shares. It's a matter right now. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Luo Nen felt a bit of empathy. Not being able to enter the circle of the awakened was one thing. Truly entering the inner world seemed to bring all sorts of troubles. Obsession underground, troubles in the sky. None of them can be avoided. Okay, you've become a philosopher. Did something hasten your maturity? Luo Nen blinked and changed the topic. Brother Jing, you still quit smoking in the end. I haven't really smoked for the past 2 years. It's funny when I think about it. I can't quit no matter what when I'm singing. But once I stop singing, it's all over. Hai Jing's wristband vibrated at this time. He lowered his head to look at it. Then he straightened his body and removed the e-cigarette. Here comes the trouble. I'll take you to find a place to rest. There are quite a few empty rooms here. Wasting them is wasting them, but safety and privacy are guaranteed. Luo Nen nodded and followed. Hai Jing put the e-cigarette back into the box. He suddenly thought of something and waved the box. Oh, right. Thank your uncle for me. He was the one who recommended this Star Ember series to me. Luo Nen laughed without saying anything. but he suddenly remembered. Amoy had so many friends. Among the men, only Hai Jing was able to visit her home alone and enter her room. Perhaps this was the key reason why he mistook Hai Jing for his brother-in-law. Mistook. Mingtang culture was one of the organizers of this parade. Before the official performance, there were a multitude of matters to attend to. Hai Jing said that he was going to lead Luo Nan to find an empty room to rest in. But he hadn't taken a few steps when an urgent matter came pressing down on him. He needed to rush over immediately. Forget it. You go by yourself. Room 5627. Just turn around the corner at the end of the corridor. Hai Jing joked as he spoke. Don't worry about bumping into people. It's fine if you try one by one. Every practice room has its own privileges. You can't enter without authorization. Okay, go do what you need to do, Brother Jing. Hai Jing turned around and was about to leave when he remembered something. Oh, right. Your girlfriend is in room 5621. She's with Bai Yu and the others. You can go there and take a stroll. With your friendship with Teacher Cat Eyes, she shouldn't kick you out. BHD's music style is more suited to the tastes of you youngsters. You made 3 mistakes in a single sentence. Should I correct you or not? In the end, Luo Nan could only accept it with a smile. Hai Jing wanted to rub Luo Nan's head, but he came to his senses in time. He placed a palm on Luo Nan's shoulder. Have fun this weekend, but you need to show some concern for your sister. Luo Nan looked pensive as he watched Hai Jing leave in a hurry. 5627, 5627. Luo Nan followed Hai Jing's instructions and found room 5627 in the corner. He was just about to reach his hand out to grab the door handle when he suddenly stopped. He raised his head to confirm the room number. 5627, that's right. There are no problems with the privileges. But why were the 2 people inside able to go in? And why were they having fun so much? The use of mental senses actually manifested here. Right now, there was only one thing he was conflicted over. Should he continue watching? Or should he continue watching? Luo Nan sighed outside the door. There was a saying in Hai Jing that was very true. The industry was very messy. Youngsters these days were quite knowledgeable. No one was a pure white lotus. Luo Nan had attended health classes before. Mo Pang would sometimes sneakily give him some indescribable materials and the like. Luo Nan was not lacking in concepts, but he had devoted himself to researching all sorts of theories since the age of 10. He worked every day and night. How could he have the leisure to delve into these things? He never expected that 16 years of emptiness would bring him this sort of high-level course in a single day of enlightenment. They should both be artists. The man was handsome, and the woman was beautiful. Though their clothes were in disarray, their makeup and grooming were extremely fashionable. It was hard for Luo Nan to avoid lingering on the body of the woman. Though he didn't approve of this sort of behavior in broad daylight, he had to admit that they were very good-looking. The woman's long hair covered half of her face. The contours of her face were slightly distorted due to the intense exercise. However, artists had innate conditions that were a cut above others. They also had strict body management, as well as the polishing of temperament and style. When they were released in the dark room, they really did have a charm that stirred people's hearts. Stop. What in the world am I thinking? Luo Nan didn't know how long he stood at the door in a daze. Of course, he didn't enter in the end. Instead, he walked forward with quick steps. After walking for nearly 20 meters, he finally stood still in the middle of the hallway and let out a long breath. His lips hadn't even parted due to the fast exhalation of air. His lips trembled rapidly under the impact of the airflow, emitting a strange puffing sound. The restless air that was stuck in his chest dissipated a bit with this comical sound. Goo! The forceful, choking sound of laughter was very clear in the hallway. At the same time the sound of laughter entered Luo Nan's ears, the door to the next room opened a crack to reveal Bai Yu's cute round face. What the hell? You're so conflicted just by entering the door? Luo Nan raised his head to look the room, number 5621. This was BHD's practice room. What a coincidence. He turned his head to glance back. He had walked nearly 20 meters and was only 2 doors away from room 5627. After all, the practice rooms were very large. You must have just gone through a round of practice. A thin layer of sweat covered her forehead, sticking to her hair. Her face was flushed red as well. Did you see your sister? You came here to visit me? That's right, your girlfriend is in there. Don't you know if she's my girlfriend or not? Luo Nan only realized the ambiguity when he said it. He laughed bitterly. She has a boyfriend. What's that Caucasian guy's name again? Turner. You blurted out. Then she covered her mouth and shot a glance behind her. She turned her head to look at the 2 ends of the hallway. Only when she didn't see anyone did she let out a sigh of relief. Then she pushed open the door and walked out. She closed the door behind her and lowered her voice. Don't let Jingu hear you. He hates it when his artists lie. Luo Nan frowned as he watched Bai walk out. Bai had been practicing her dance in the room just now. She had even worn 10-centimeter high heels in order to imitate the scene of the performance to the greatest degree. Her well-developed body had grown a bit taller. When she stood together, she was taller than Luo Nan by 2 or 3 fingers. Of course, this wasn't important. What was important was that Bai was wearing a tight-fitting dance outfit. She was already drenched in sweat. The curve of her chest caused a gap to appear in her small round collar. Her snowy white flesh shone in front of Luo Nan's eyes. He didn't know whether to look at her or turn his head. Chapter 454. It was probably the legendary goblins that got to their brains. Luo Nan wanted to smack his own head. He felt that he wouldn't be more embarrassed than he was right now if he were to fight with an extraordinary. Okay, this was an exaggeration. A moment of embarrassment was far from being comparable to a duel of life and death. Ever since he entered the inner world, everything he encountered was much more difficult than what he was facing now. Compared to the true predicament he faced, the current encounter was nothing more than a small stumble in adolescence. He had overcome even greater difficulties. There was no reason for him to shrink back now. No, there was no reason for him to be a slave to his desires. Luo Nan's mind fluctuated with a few thoughts, and he felt much better. He took a deep breath and maintained a steady tone of voice. I understand. Go back and practice. Where are you going? Did Brother Jing really arrange work for you? Before Luo Nan could think of a good reason, the sound of noisy footsteps could be heard from the other end of the corridor. A large group of people circled around the corner, room 5627, and walked over. The most eye-catching people in the crowd were the bodyguards with strong bodies in suits and leather shoes. They formed a dense layer around the perimeter. There were also service personnel with work nameplates hanging to the side. However, the most eye-catching person was a fashionably dressed woman in the deepest part of the crowd. She wore sunglasses, and her head was slightly raised. She was surrounded by people, and her aura grew more and more powerful. The spacious hallway became exceptionally narrow because of the arrival of this group of people. The wild mandarin ducks in room 5627 heard the noise. They tightly hugged each other from a negative distance. Under panic and stimulation, they secreted large amounts of dopamine, serotonin, estrogen, and so on. Their entire bodies responded, and they even confused the boundaries between pleasure and fear. Only now did Luo Nan discover that he had been paying attention to them all this time. This was really the result of seeing oneself clearly was often awkwardness. Awkwardness wasn't a poison. One wouldn't die from suffocation. Luo Nan thought that he was the only one who knew from beginning to end. At most, he would be able to research the information in private. This was a benefit brought to him by his ability. It was fine as long as he didn't get affected by it and reflected his desires into reality. Luo Nan's mental construction had just reached a certain level when he suddenly felt a tug. He turned his head to look and saw Bai Yu's taut face. She gave him a meaningful glance to get closer. Her body language was quite nervous. With Luo Nan's current attainments in body techniques, he obviously wouldn't be tugged by a little girl. But, seeing Bai Yu's expression, he took the opportunity to walk over, and the two of them stood against the wall. Bai Yu let out a sigh of relief. She then lowered her head and crossed her hands over her abdomen. Her posture was as proper as a flight attendant's. At this moment, a group of people happened to pass by. She immediately smiled and greeted them in a low but clear voice. Sister Weiwei, Director Wu. Even with Luo Nan's eyesight, he wasn't able to see whether or not the powerful woman responded. Instead, a middle-aged man in his 50s spoke to Luo Nan's side. Don't loiter around outside. If you need to practice, go practice. The dense mass of people walked past. They made a right turn at the end of the corridor, breaking away from Luo Nan and Bai Yu's line of sight. However, Luo Nan's mental senses remained clairvoyant from beginning to end. At the corner was a semi-sealed passageway. The passageway was locked by a transparent electronic door. At the end of the passageway was a carved double door. Behind the door was a rather luxurious suite that could easily fit dozens of people. The group of people walked into the suite. Not long after, the service staff who had just followed them hurriedly left, most likely having received a task. Seeing the service staff pass by, Bai Yu stuck out her tongue. I got caught. I have to get out of here. Hold on, who's that? Director Wu. She's the head of the company's artist department. Brother Jing's immediate superior. Of course, she's also our big boss. Bai Yu's eyes blinked as she spoke. It was as if she was telling Luo Nan that she was different from the boss she had won a bet with. Luo Nan's heartbeat sped up a bit when he was stared at by these eyes. Unfortunately, the scene of the ravine and snow-white muscles kept swaying in his mind. He did his best to rid himself of the effects of his hormones and tried to chat normally. That sister, Weiwei, should be an artist as well. It looks like she's treated much better than you. How can that be the same? Huh? You don't know her? I'm not familiar with the entertainment circle. You really don't know her? What's there to show off? Ah, my heart suddenly feels better. Bai Yu clasped her hands together and made a gesture of thanking God. Then she happily explained to Luo Nan, that's the pillar of our Mingtang culture, Shiwei. She's a standard A-list artist. She's quite famous in East Asia and Southeast Asia. Shiwei, you don't have any impression? No, I can remember a bit. She debuted as a super pure and innocent celebrity. She seems to have successfully transformed her career. Her acting path is quite wide. There was a period of time when Mo Pong was very obsessed with her. He borrowed money from me to buy peripherals. Bai Yu let out a long sigh. Peripherals? When we debuted, peripherals were half sold and half given away. Even so, we still accumulated half a warehouse. She's not like Sister Wei. Her position as the #1 sister in the company will be more or less stabilized in the next few years. Luo Nan paid attention to the situation in the room. He discovered that Shi Wei and the big boss of the artiste department, Director Wu, were talking on equal terms. She was even a bit stronger. Sure enough, she had the style of a #1 sister. She's even invited to stand on the stage for this sort of parade and assembly. Sister Wei's transformation was in the direction of public welfare. Plus, with her popularity, standing on the stage is more effective than us dancing for an entire night. Huh, that's weird. Sister Wei's schedule is famous for being tight. There's still 7 or 8 hours until the performance. Bai Yu's eyes shone brightly. Her eyes were lit up by curiosity. She had long forgotten about being caught red-handed. She lowered her head and operated her wristband. She checked the internet and even signaled Luo Nan to come over and enjoy the show. Sky Street, one of the largest gossip communities in East Asia. Their social media accounts are updated in real time. Even though it's annoying to be exposed here, honestly speaking, we still hope to see news about ourselves on there. It'll increase our exposure. Look, it's this. Fairy, she's secretly meeting a new lover. It looks like she was out on a date and got caught by the paparazzi. Aha! She's definitely here to hide. This sealed floor was indeed quiet. The paparazzi didn't have the authority to come here. But what the hell was Bai Yu excited about? Luo Nen finally understood. Bai Yu was older than him by half a year, but she was actually a little gossip bug. It was sad that she had chosen the enemy camp. Luo Nan was shaking his head in his mind when he suddenly discovered a new situation. He signaled for Bai Yu to open the door to the practice room behind him and pushed her inside. Someone's coming. Luo Nan let out a breath after dealing with the loose ends. He turned around and walked in the opposite direction, but he hadn't walked more than a few steps when he heard someone call out to him, "Hey, you over here!" Luo Nan turned his head with a pure expression. "You called me?" The person who called out to Luo Nan was none other than Director Wu. He walked out from the sealed passageway with a slightly chubby young woman following by his side. The woman was talking to him. "It's better if I go by myself." "Don't. The reporters outside are like wolves and tigers. You've been with Little Wei for far too long. They all recognize you. Let someone else do the work of running errands." Director Wu scanned Luo Nan's face as he spoke. He felt that this young man's face was quite young and unfamiliar. He was a bit puzzled. "Which department are you from?" Luo Nan subconsciously replied, "I'm with Brother Jing." "Hi Jing, right?" Director Wu's gaze swept over the nameplate on Luo Nan's chest, and he felt relieved. He signaled for Luo Nan to come over and instructed, "You and Assistant Meng exchange numbers. Remove the nameplate and go to Ruifing Building. Bring back the pre-ordered breakfast set. I've already trained you guys on how to hide from reporters. Be smart." There was no need to explain the cause and effect. Luo Nen couldn't refuse in this situation. Otherwise, he would be digging a hole for Hai Jing. He responded honestly, removed the nameplate, turned around and left. Director Wu and Assistant Meng returned to the suite. Luo Nen quickly walked through the hallway, but just as he passed room 5621, a crack in the door of the practice room opened. Bai Yu poked her head out. "Oh, the refreshments of Ruifing Building. They're so damn expensive, and they don't have takeout service. I can only pick them up from their doorstep, but I heard that they're good for your looks. I really need to run errands this time." The girl had been eavesdropping through the crack in the door all this time. Luo Nen didn't care about running errands. Hai Jing was able to bring him in. Why couldn't he do something? He asked casually, "Do you want some? I'll give you some along the way." "There's no need for refreshments. I can't afford them." "Huh." She turned around and said a few words into the room. A few seconds later, she poked her head out again. She blinked her eyes fiercely and did her best to charm. "Brother Luo Nan, come in for a bit, okay?" Luo Nan sighed and entered the room according to her words. For gazes fell upon him as soon as he entered the room. He recognized Cat Eyes and Yu Qin. There were also two young girls who were a bit older than Bai Yu. They were undoubtedly the other two members of the BHD group. Hai Jing had mentioned before that one of them was Shui Yuan, who had the nickname of Housekeeper. The other was Clara, Barbie. As members of a girl group, their personas were quite distinct. The one who was drenched in sweat and had a white towel draped over her shoulder was frowning as she looked over. She was most likely Shui Yuan. She had a serious face, and her figure was the most well-proportioned and fit. As for Clara, she was undoubtedly the charming mixed-blood beauty. Her skin was as white as milk, and her looks were extremely high. Bai Yu giggled and clapped. "Hurry up, hurry up. High-end free labor is only available once. Boss Luo is going to Ruifing Road to pick up takeout. Anyone who wants to pick up something along the way, hurry up and sign up. The floor is closed right now. If you miss this opportunity, you'll have no hope at all. Shredded radish? The charming Clara let out a low laugh. She was amorous, and she was much more mature than her age. She also casually created a new nickname for Luo Nan. Barbie. Dull. As the captain, Shui Yuan naturally opened her mouth to reprimand her team members for their impolite actions. But when the nicknames of these two were linked together, it was quite funny. Shui Yuan acted as if she didn't notice. She took the initiative to extend her hand. You must be student Luo. Hello. Luo Nan extended his hand in response, but he was slapped away by Cat Eyes, who had just walked over halfway. Cat Eyes didn't care about Luo Nan and Shui Yuan's awkwardness. She clapped her hands to attract everyone's attention. If we delay any longer, we'll miss breakfast time. The boss is running errands for Shui. It takes around half an hour for him to go back and forth to Ruifeng Building. The other takeout deliveries should arrive around this time as well. How about this? Everyone can order their own food and wait for the boss to come back to bring it up at the same time. No problems, right? Chapter 455. The group of people all rolled over in laughter. But these girls did not know how much complicated information was contained in Luo Nan and Cat Eye's conversation. They also did not know what sort of sharpness was hidden in their gazes. Luo Nan was drunk when faced with such a believer who was unconvinced and had a tendency to self-destruct. Shui Yuan, who was next to Luo Nan, thought of something. She suggested, let's first exchange numbers. We'll send our orders to student Luo to avoid mistakes and to avoid transferring again. Bai Yu was the first to agree, but she turned around and revealed a fierce expression. If the private numbers of 3 future idols get out, you're dead for sure. Unfortunately, no matter how much she twisted her face, her adorable round face could only show cuteness. Luo Nan shrugged and extended his hand to exchange numbers with them. He also gained the friendship of the BHD girl group. He waved his hand, turned around, and walked out. You guys hurry up and order your food. Also, please pay attention to the type of food. Fast food and pastries are the best. I don't want to have to wait downstairs for a dozen or 20 minutes after coming back. Bai Yu let out an ah, and expressed with extreme innocence, we're all obese. What about body management? Shui Yuan stared at her. Body management has already collapsed the moment you suggested it. But Captain, you didn't refute it. I'll take you guys to strengthen your training for 2 hours. Hypocrite. Pervert. Luo Nan had already opened the door to leave the BHD group's internal strife. At this time, the silent Yuqin walked up to him and whispered into his ear, Mr. Luo, let me go with you. Huh. No need, no need. Cat Eyes giggled as she hugged Yuqin's shoulder. She kissed her and firmly pressed her down. Right now he's burning hot. His head has a fever. It'll be better for him to go out by himself. You're the one with a fever, Luo Nan retorted. But when he saw Cat Eye's expression, he understood that something good had happened next door. It was impossible to hide it from her. In fact, Cat Eyes might have even seen his relatively straightforward reaction earlier on. Was it awkward? Of course it was. But his special relationship with Cat Eyes had more or less dispelled a portion of it. He just glared at her and opened the door. Cat Eyes suddenly said, I won't order a meal for you. You can just go to Auspicious Abundance Restaurant and receive a flowing stone set. It's simple and quick. Thank you, boss. As she spoke, Cat Eyes gave him a salute. Luo Nan turned his head, speechless for a time. He didn't know the market price of Ruifeng Restaurant, but from the look of fear on Bai Yu's face, he could tell how powerful the flowing stone was. Fortunately, he had just earned a large sum of money last night, so he had some confidence. In the end, he just waved his hand and walked out of the door. The elevator required them to pass by room 5627. Luo Nan noticed that the wild mandarin ducks were still inside. They were already neatly dressed, and they stuck to the door with one in front and one in back. They used the visual system of the door to observe the situation outside. They were at a loss as to whether or not to open the door. Luo Nan's sudden passing caused the male artist to jump in fright. He blurted out a curse. "You're asking for a beating." Luo Nan raised his eyebrows. He didn't stop and just walked straight past. The male artist finally confirmed that there was no one outside the door. Just as he opened the door a crack, there was a loud thud and the door shook. He went, "Ah!" and fell back, bumping into his completely defenseless bedmate behind him. The female artist screamed and fell back. Fortunately, she reacted in time and held onto the male artist, so she didn't fall down. However, the color of the male artist's shirt made the female artist choke. Luo Nan used his interference power to vent his anger. Then he took the elevator downstairs. The female artist screamed and fell back. Hai Jing discovered that Luo Nan had gone out from the nameplate information system and asked. The boss was embarrassed when he found out about the situation. He wanted to send someone to take his place, but Luo Nan refused. Luo Nan didn't care about running errands. Peony's so-called perfect plan wasn't feasible and he was already idle. It wasn't bad to have something to do. Also, since Ruifeng restaurant's refreshments were famous, there was no harm in giving some to Amoya and the others. Wasn't this supposed to be a visit? Luo Nan soon exited the office building. According to the display of the electronic map, he needed to cross the plaza to the opposite block. Crossing the plaza, which could hold several 100,000 people, was not a matter of a few steps. Due to the demonstration, some public transportation was restricted. He had to either ride a bicycle or rely on his two legs. In short, it was physically exhausting work. Bicycle, leg, single-leg car. Forget it. Let's just ride a bicycle. Luo Nan turned off the electronic map. Before this, he had already locked onto the location of the legendary Ruifeng restaurant through his mental senses. Right now, he wasn't afraid of walking the wrong way even if he closed his eyes. Luo Nan rode his bicycle across the plaza. Right now, the municipal plaza could be considered to be a sea of people. The bicycle needed to take many detours before it could find the specially opened evacuation tunnel. The bicycle could travel relatively smoothly. Luo Nan's wristband vibrated continuously. It was a screenshot of the order sent by the BHD group. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, the fourth ring wasn't from the wristband. It came from the connection between Luo Nan and ink on the mental plane. The source came from Peony, who was still wandering halfway. How's the progress? If you want to do this sort of plan again, then find someone better. Luo Nan roughly observed the situation around the municipal plaza. The living starry sky was becoming more and more crowded. It was like a river overflowing under a torrential rain. Millions and millions of stars flowed endlessly, refreshing at every moment. If Luo Nan wanted to search for ability users, mutants, or even Darksider species like the Wraith sign, Luo Nan would not be afraid. But if he wanted to search for Phase 2 infected, Phase 2? You want to search for Phase 2? Peony was surprised for once. What's wrong? Right now it's estimated to be Phase 2. Of course I want to search for Phase 2 and be vigilant against Phase 3. Peony interrupted his words. Mr. Partner, you have obsessive-compulsive disorder, right? Cough. That's because I lack common sense. Right now in the world, there are no methods outside of the laboratory that can effectively determine the existence of Phase 2 infected, especially in this sort of environment. I believe this is the most basic of common sense. You're not going to search for Phase 2? Of course. Phase 1 is the source of infection for mutants. Phase 3 is the target for primary mutants. These are the targets of search that have actual meaning. I know that Phase 2 infected people have more value in management, but that's only in theory. It doesn't have any actual meaning. Perhaps only people with severe obsessive-compulsive disorder would consider things from this angle. Luo Nan was certain that if Peony stood in front of him, he would accelerate at full speed and crash into her. Several seconds later, Peony sent him a low chuckle. "Mr. Partner, are you angry?" Luo Nen ignored her. "I'm sorry. Maybe I haven't completely sobered up, or maybe I'm on my period. I don't really pay attention to what I say. You should already be in the plaza right now. Do you want to meet up with me? I've always been quite curious about a partner like you." Luo Nan's eyebrows jumped. He instinctively looked all around, believing that Peony had discovered him. He only reacted half a second later. She was still walking leisurely on the road right now, and Ink was her best informant. But on the other hand, Luo Nen had displayed a degree of familiarity with the current situation of the plaza because Ink was together with her. This made Peony make a judgment that matched the facts. Did he give himself away? Luo Nan hesitated for a moment. He wasn't interested in maintaining a sense of mystery, but Her Majesty Empress Wu must have had her reasons for arranging this pattern. There was no need to complicate matters, so he refused. He put on a little act in passing. "Compared to my eyes, your plan is more meaningful." "Fine. In any case, someone is treating me to lunch, even though I might not go. Then we'll contact each other again in the afternoon. We'll work overtime together at night to search for the targets of Phase 1 and Phase 3. Peony intentionally emphasized these two words. Luo Nan's lips twitched. "Okay, if you discover anything during this time, you can notify me. I'm always online." There was nothing else to do after this. Luo Nan rode his bicycle and locked onto Ruifeng Building. He left in a hurry and returned in a hurry. When he really rode over, he knew that this journey would not be easy. Time was very tight. Fortunately, Luo Nan had been cultivating nonstop recently, coupled with the feedback from his soul strength under the coupling relationship. His physical strength surpassed the limits of an ordinary person. He was able to smoothly make a round trip within 20 minutes. Luo Nan returned to the office building. The takeout ordered by the BHD group had arrived one after another. The last delivery boy arrived around the same time as Luo Nan. Luo Nan was near the service desk. He checked the orders one by one to confirm that everything was complete. Then he encountered a new problem. As a temporary delivery boy, Luo Nan was running 5 or 6 orders at the same time, but he only had one pair of hands. The amount of food for so many people and the reality of the separate packaging made it impossible for Luo Nan to use conventional methods to move this pile of things up in one go. Luo Nan looked at the pile of beautifully packaged food boxes on the ground, and he was puzzled despite much thought. It didn't make sense. No matter how gluttonous a group of girls were, they shouldn't have gone to this extent. Did they still need to manage their bodies? Luo Nan checked the order information they sent over once more, but he didn't discover any problems. Oh, wait a moment. There was another message besides the order. The sender of the message was Clara. Luo Nan gave a cursory glance and laughed bitterly. The sound of lithe footsteps drew near at this time. A woman's voice whispered, "Mr. Luo, let me help." Luo Nan turned his head and saw Yu Qin greeting him 3 steps away from him. Their gazes met and Yu Qin bowed slightly. She wore a moon-white long sweater that reached her knees. She paired it with a polka-dot blouse and a high-waisted skirt. She walked with a light and familiar style. It was fortunate that her temperament was able to hold it up. In the end, she still came downstairs to greet him. This sort of attitude concealed her natural intelligence and sharpness. She concealed it over and over again. She was extremely cautious and conservative. Luo Nan knew what Yu Qin was thinking, and Yu Qin had a corresponding awareness. Perhaps it was a bit difficult for her to grasp the right amount of heat, so she simply did things a bit more extreme. What she sought was a state of "no one will blame you for being too polite." Such a smart and calm young girl had really been implicated by her stupid older brother. But then again, Luo Nan couldn't figure it out. Could it be that, in the eyes of others, he really was a big boss who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance? A big boss who would annihilate an entire family? Luo Nan sighed. It's good that you came. Help keep an eye out for a bit. I'll go find a luggage cart or something." Only now did Eugene truly count the number of food boxes stacked under Luo Nan's feet. She was a bit shocked. This many. It seems like Clara ordered lunch for the seniors in the same building. Chapter 456. Eugene and Clara's friendship had not yet reached the stage of judging behind her back, so she only smiled. As it turned out, the possibility of finding a luggage cart in the lobby of an office building was almost zero. In the end, the two of them still had to use the simplest method of manual labor to move the food boxes into the elevator. "Let's move one batch first. Later, you guard the elevator. I'll move the rest over." "All right. By the way, call them, especially Clara. Just wait outside the elevator. It's a waste not to use the labor. Once we arrive at the station, we'll split them up." Eugene obeyed obediently and really called the other side. Then, the two of them picked up the big and small food boxes and walked inside. Since it was a private elevator, not many people used it. They didn't see anyone else on the way. It was also at this moment that Eugene finally broke the veil. "Mr. Luo, I'm very sorry." Luo Nan gazed at the long corridor in front of him. He was a bit helpless. "I don't care about that matter." "I know." Eugene lowered her eyes and smiled faintly, her meaning subtle. "I can see that. However, I said sorry, because if I didn't do something unnecessary to confirm it from you, I wouldn't be able to feel at ease. That's why I pestered you so much today. Please forgive me." Only then did Luo Nan shoot her a glance. He nodded and said, "It's fine." Before Eugene could say anything else, the elevator in front of them opened, and a middle-aged man hurried out. He was dressed in formal attire, and the style was quite similar to that of Haijing. He took off the nameplate on his chest as he walked. Luo Nan's eyes were sharp. He saw that it was the pass to Mingtang Culture's floor. As they walked past each other, the man glanced at him. His wristband rang at that moment. He quickly answered the call and answered, Yes, I'm Xiao Sha. It's on the first floor of the Tonghui building. Just come over, I'll wait outside." "No problem." "There's absolutely no problem with the authority." Luo Nan piled up the food boxes in the elevator and left Eugene to look after them. Then he went back and moved them a second time. In the lobby, he saw the man with the surname Sha standing straight outside the door like an old doorman. Luo Nan didn't mind. He carried the remaining food containers back to the elevator and tidied things up with Eugene. They both swiped their nameplates and prepared to go up. A second later, the elevator doors opened again. He could vaguely hear the man surnamed Sha panting outside. "I made it. Young master he, please." A group of people hurried in as they spoke. The leader of the group cursed. "Xia City really has enough paparazzi." "Aya." Luo Nan and Eugene had already paid great attention to their placement, but there were far too many food boxes. The people who came later were in a rush. The person at the front nearly kicked over a food box when they swarmed in. Actually, Luo Nan had already kicked him, but Luo Nan used his interference power to move along with the force without making a sound. The momentum was eliminated, and Luo Nan passed smoothly. He did it very discreetly. In the elevator, be it Eugene or the person who came in first, none of them noticed. But outside the elevator, there was a strong reaction from the people who were entering one after another. They rushed forward and grabbed the shoulder of the person in the lead, forcefully pulling him back. His aura exploded, stirring up great waves. Luo Nan's mental senses had already covered the newcomer. He had not sensed the ability user earlier. However, in that instant, the person who had reacted first had actually leaped from an extremely ordinary state to at least C+. His explosive power was astonishing, and his ability to conceal his aura was even more impressive. Luo Nan's relaxed mind suddenly went taut. He locked onto the most threatening target in the first instance. He subconsciously extended his arm to block Eugene behind him. But the scene suddenly changed in the next moment. Someone shouted, "Young master he," and rushed up in a hurry. It was the person with the surname Shah, who was suspected to be an employee of Mingtang culture. The weather was obviously cold, but this person's face was covered in a layer of sweat. The sweat moistened his dry and loose cheeks. His face seemed to glow faintly, and he was especially excited. What's going on? The elevator is broken. Huh. The person with the surname Shah saw Luo Nan and Yu Qin in the exclusive elevator. There were food boxes of all sizes by their feet. He was stunned, but soon he said angrily, "What's going on with you guys?" "This is an exclusive elevator assigned to our company. Non-authorized personnel are not allowed to enter." Luo Nan didn't pay attention to him. He just cautiously scanned everyone outside the elevator. He saw two familiar faces in a row, and it was inevitable that he was a bit surprised. At the same time, the most threatening person should have recognized him. His solemn expression loosened a bit. He bowed slightly, an apology for his overreaction just now. "Mr. Luo, what's the situation?" Qin Ikuin, who was outside the building, communicated through the hexa ear. His tone was nervous. The instantaneous explosion of the aura just now had appeared on the security team's monitoring equipment. It was truly a stone that stirred up 1,000 ripples. To put it bluntly, it was a complete mess. "It's a misunderstanding. It's nothing." Luo Nan privately replied to Qin Ikuin. He found it a bit funny. In the end, was it a large-scale event to attract people? Or were the people of Xia City evil? Today's acquaintances were jumping out one by one. It was impossible to stop them. Luo Nan took care of both sides at the same time. It was inevitable that he would overlook the least important person. He didn't open his mouth, but Yu Qin stepped forward and spoke in a soft voice. "We followed Director Wu's instructions to go to Ruifeng building to get some refreshments for Sister Weiwei. You know, it's not convenient for Assistant Meng to leave right now." This reason was sufficient. The person with the surname Shah seemed to believe it. "You guys are from Mingtang culture? Where's the nameplate?" Director Wu had arranged for Luo Nan to remove his nameplate before leaving to avoid running into paparazzi reporters. Luo Nan forgot to hang his nameplate on his chest after entering the elevator and swiping his nameplate. He stuffed it back into his pocket. Most of Yu Qin's body was blocked behind him, so this person probably didn't see it. The other person's words were quite reasonable. Luo Nan took out his nameplate and spread it out in his palm, displaying it for the other person to see. The person with the surname Shah simply took the nameplate and blinked. His contact lenses scanned the nameplate, and the relevant information was read out. "Authorized by Haijing." "Huh. And yours?" Yu Qin copied Luo Nan and handed over her nameplate. The person with the surname Shah received it and confirmed it once more before nodding. It looked like he approved of it. He even revealed a smile on his face. "So you guys were brought by Haijing. Since you guys are Haijing's subordinates, have you never asked who their department head is?" There was such a thing. Luo Nan was just about to explain when he heard a loud bang. This Director Shah smashed the side wall of the elevator with force. "Which family do you guys belong to? You came in through crooked means, Mountain Creek or BHD. Speak." Luo Nan knew that things were bad when Manager Shah's expression suddenly changed. The two of them had indeed gone through the back door. They could accept being reprimanded. But Director Shah's words clearly put a label on Haijing. The meaning behind it was quite deep. Luo Nan frowned. The two acquaintances outside the elevator were watching with cold eyes. He didn't want to engage in a meaningless conflict and make a fool of himself, so he said, "We really were upstairs helping out." Every single bastard says the same thing. Then they do whatever they want to do. Director Shah sneered. Director Wu has a myriad of problems to deal with every day. He only recognizes nameplates and not people. It's not strange that you guys have Haijing supporting you from behind. Everyone knows that Sister Wei has the habit of having morning and afternoon tea. But don't tell me you guys bought all of this for Sister Wei. Okay, you guys don't need to say anything. I'll have Hai Jing explain things to Director Wu. Director Shah quickly blinked twice and took a picture of Luo Nan and Yuqin. He raised his chin. Leave Sister Wei's tea and snacks behind. Take the rest out. Be more self-aware, or else I'll call security. Director Shah turned his body after he finished speaking coldly. His arrogant figure instantly bent in half, and the wrinkles on his face piled up. Young He, please wait a moment. We'll be done here soon. Chapter 457. No matter what, Yu Qin was born into a wealthy family. Even though she was submissive to Luo Nan, she was extremely arrogant in her bones. Director Shah was a department head of a management company, yet he was arrogant and bossy. He even spat out the words, "Get lost." How could she endure this? Show some respect. Miss, do you think it would be more respectful to let the security guards come and drag you away? Director Shah looked at Yu Qin's clothes. Most of them were fashionable items, and her matching was quite good. He knew that this woman's family was quite well off. Normally, he wouldn't have directly shed all pretense of cordiality. But right now he was backed by the young master of the He family. In a few days he would be like a fish leaping into a dragon. What was there to be afraid of? Director Shah held a breath of heroism as he stood in front of the elevator door. He felt more and more at ease. He didn't waste words and directly called for the building's security guards. He finished calling and saw that Luo Nan and Yu Qin had no intention of coming out. He wasn't in a hurry. He reached out and pointed at the two. Shameless, huh? Fine. You guys stay here. Director Shah directly confiscated their nameplates and used his authority to lock down the elevator. Only then did he turn around and smile once more. Apologies, young He. I wasn't strict enough with my subordinates. I've made a fool out of myself. There's no reason to reason with these idol-chasing kids. I'll deal with the relevant personnel of the company severely later. Young He, don't let them ruin your mood. I'll have the property management open up a backup elevator. It won't take much time. Young, he chuckled outside the elevator. It's fine. Director Shah handled things well. You've thought things through very thoroughly. It's my duty. It's my duty. Young, He, this way please. Director Shah relaxed completely when he saw that Young He didn't blame him. He twisted his face and gave Luo Nan and Yu Qin a cold glance. He was about to walk out of the elevator when he remembered something. Give me Sister Wei's refreshments. He wanted to be bold and confident, but Luo Nan and Yu Qin were disinclined to pay attention to him. Director Shah saw that the security guards had already come over from the other end of the corridor. He was even more fearless. He simply did it himself. He lowered his head and searched through the food boxes on the floor. He had seen the refreshments and food boxes of Ruifeng building before. According to his thoughts, there was only one such high-end, custom-made food box in the elevator. He could just take it away if he found it. He believed that this young couple wouldn't dare to snatch it. But when he cast his gaze over, Director Shah was stunned. 1, 2, 3. 3 maroon food boxes, specially made by Ruifeng Restaurant, were neatly arranged at the innermost end of the elevator. The original wood material and the 3-story pavilion's design were exactly the same as the Eastern classical artwork. Director Shah could not help but turn his head and look at young Master He, who was still smiling and watching the show. Could it be that Shi Wei specifically ordered 3 portions to entertain the guests? This was drinking tea, not feeding pigs. So the other 2 were probably bought by the young couple themselves to give to their idols? The price at Ruifeng Restaurant was not low. Which one is Sister Wei's? Manager Shah had no choice but to ask. Luonan shrugged. He was too lazy to even open his mouth. He had to admit that he was partly responsible for the difficulty of moving the takeout boxes. After all, in addition to what Shi Wei's assistant had ordered, there was also Cat Eyes' so-called flowing stone set. In order to show filial respect to his older sister, and complete the task of visiting the set. He had bought another set. 2 sets of tea set, desserts, food box, and tea set cost more than 10,000 yuan. Without a doubt, this was the impulsive spending of a nouveau riche after his wallet was full. Director Sha did not care about the nouveau riche. He had seen many crazy fans who would throw money away for their idols. Luo Nan and the others were not the craziest. He just felt awkward. If this couple didn't cooperate and he took the wrong food, it would be hard for him to avoid being punished by Shi Wei. Plus, he did not forget that Shi Wei's lover was right behind him. Director Sha was a bit anxious. He saw that the security guards had already approached, so his voice grew louder. The tea and snacks were definitely ordered by Sister Wei. You two are going to forcefully steal them. 2 people come. Drag them out first. As he spoke, Director Sha moved back to give the security guards room to act. At the same time, he pondered whether or not he should contact Assistant Meng, who was by Shi Wei's side, and ask her about the details of the tea and snacks order. Young master, he clicked his tongue just as he exited the elevator. It's pretty ugly now that it's developed to the point of pulling and pulling. Director Sha hurriedly turned around. Young master, don't worry. We absolutely won't delay you and Sister Wei from drinking your morning tea. Hey, you guys, don't kick over the innermost food boxes. It was rare for him to take care of both sides and still be able to think clearly without a hint of chaos. And for the sake of expressing his importance, he drilled back into the elevator after the security guards restrained Luo Nan and Yu Qin. He bent over to pick up the 3 custom-made food boxes. Young master, his laughter came from behind him. He could hear that he was quite delighted. This proves one thing. People must live magnanimously. They must live properly. Otherwise, if you play the pig, you will fall into the dung pit. If you act cool, you will be struck by lightning. Director Sha hated himself for touching the food boxes. He bent over, unable to turn around and send out a sincere smile. But his mouth did not fall behind. He praised loudly. Young master, his words are truly incisive. He had just lifted the food box in the middle when a certain chain of logic in the depths of his brain suddenly snapped. He was unable to connect the cause and effect, no matter what. Young master, his voice continued to enter his ears. That's right. It's this expression. Wait for me to record it and save it as evidence. Boss Luo, you chased stars behind my sister's back and hooked up with little girls. This is retribution. You must be bored. The cold and indifferent voice came from the young bastard. Director Sha ignored the sentence. The information in front of him really made him a bit dumbfounded. Sister? What sister? Director Sha maintained his bent posture and froze on the spot. However, his thoughts were like a kite that had lost its string. It spun crazily in the vortex and could not find its direction at all. In this chaotic state, Director Sha vaguely knew that the security guard he had called had retreated. Young master, his bodyguards and followers who had exited the elevator earlier had rushed in again. Due to the existence of the food box, the place to step was relatively tight. People were squeezed and people were pushed against each other. Director Sha bent over, so the area he occupied was a little large. Someone knocked on his spine twice. It was young master Stand up straight. Don't get in the way. Oh my God, I'm going to collapse. Director Sha did not know how his spine, which was as soft as noodles, was supported. When he straightened his body, he saw young master, smiling as he put his arm around the shoulder of the bastard fan. The latter was pushing him away with a cold expression. Young master, he was not annoyed at all. On the contrary, he laughed out loud. Don't mind me. I'm flattered that you brought tea and snacks for our Xiaowei. In the future, I will absolutely not create any obstruction between you and my sister. That's good enough, right? Such intimate words and body language made Director Sha's face turn into a bewitching neon rainbow in the red light district. It was ever-changing. In the end, it was completely cut off and turned into a patch of black ash. When things reached an extreme, they would move in the opposite direction. At this moment, years of social instincts dominated everything. Director Shaw's face suddenly burst into a smile. Ah, sorry. This. His instincts were still flawed. Director Shaw's mind suddenly went blank. He had forgotten the surname of this most important person. Don Lu kindly reminded him, call him Boss Luo. Don't look at his tender face. He's a ruthless character who can order my sister around. Hey, stop squeezing. Otherwise, if only one of us goes down, we won't be able to live. In an instant, almost everyone's gaze fell on Director Shaw's face. I don't want to live. Chapter 458. Don Lu, temporarily unemployed, a vagrant. The elevator went up quickly. Young master, he introduced himself. He looked humorous, friendly, and elegant. It was as if the scene of him hugging his shoulders and laughing strangely was all a dream. Hello, young master, Yu-Chin extended her hand and lightly shook Dongluo's hand. Luo Nan gave a simple introduction according to etiquette. Yu-Chin. Classmate. Actually, the relationship was a bit more complicated, but Luo Nan was disinclined to explain it to Donglu. Hello, classmate. You have unlimited possibilities. Donglu recovered his mischievous demeanor. However, he stopped there and didn't continue teasing. Didn't he step forward just now to control the situation? He absolutely couldn't let the dangerous person in front of him fly into a rage out of humiliation. Since they had appeared here, there was a high chance that they would continue to cross paths. He was here to amuse himself. There was no need for him to put himself in danger. Oh, and don't clash with the target. At this time, Yu-Chin's bracelet vibrated. It was Bai Yu and the others who were anxiously waiting at the elevator, making a phone call. Yu-Chin didn't mention the conflict downstairs. She simply said a few words and hung up. Donglu swept his eyes over the rapidly changing numbers on the panel. He said with a smile, many thanks, old bro. You personally brought the takeout. This is a great favor. I'll get Shiwei to toast you a few more cups later. If she has any good friends, I'll introduce them to you first. Luo Nan responded in a lukewarm tone. It was just in passing. No need to be polite. Though Luo Nan said this, he still gave Donglu a few more glances. After all, it was gossip about an A-list celebrity. He had just read it with Baiyu. Even if Shiwei was an A-lister, she would not have the guts to cheat in front of young Master Kong Tianhe. This was probably the legendary changing the scene. The atmosphere in the elevator became a lot more natural. Donglu pointed at the food boxes on the floor and said with a smile, Then, old bro, who are you visiting? Look at this amount. TSK. Isn't this too much of a philanthropist? Your brother, am willing to admit defeat. Luo Nan didn't beat around the bush. My cousin's band is performing tonight. There are also a few new friends I've made. Donglu was very surprised. Then I really have to support you. Her band is... Shan, she just signed a contract with Ming Tang. She's not that famous. Dongluo's brows jumped. Just signed? At this time? Luo Nan's gaze was focused. Is there something wrong? Brother, it seems like your sensitivity is not high enough. Don't you know which company owns Mingtang Culture? Donglu didn't intentionally leave him hanging. He quickly answered his own question. The Ancient Castle Financial Group, the Blood Flame Order. He purposely lowered his voice when he said the last word, creating a perfect atmosphere. Ding dong. The elevator reached the 56th floor. The atmosphere lightened a bit, but Donglu was able to see Luo Nan's tightly furrowed brows as he wished. He spread his hands. So you understand. Speaking of which box is she weighs? I'll just bring it over. The middle. Luo Nan responded subconsciously. Thanks a lot. Speaking of which, Donglu was quite ostentatious. apart from the old driver bodyguard that Wang Yao had seen in Ocean Sky Cloud City. There were still 5 or 6 attendants. Naturally, there were people taking his place at this time. The elevator door opened, and He Donglu walked out with a beaming smile. In the next moment, his eyes lit up. Hey, didn't I say that Ming Tang's resources aren't bad? You guys are that long-legged, good-looking group? What's your name again? All the members of BHD were gathered outside the lift. Originally, he was waiting for his family's pastries and snacks. Who would have thought that when the elevator opened, a playboy would come out? They couldn't help but be a bit stupefied. Luckily, the housekeeper, Shui Yuan, was well-trained. She counted to 3. Then the 3 sisters bowed at the same time with a smile. Hello, we are BHD. He Donglu chuckled. His playboy temperament flared up. He instinctively reached out his hand, wanting to touch the face of Clara, the most good-looking of them all. But his hand was halfway there when he felt an inexplicable chill on his back. He cursed inwardly and could only lift it up. He tidied his own hair and turned around. There are quite a few people here in Mingtang that I like. I suddenly have an idea. Brother, let's join hands. We can talk about the capital operation. I'll give you 20% of the shares. You just need to help me grasp the timing and see when it's good to strike the bottom. Luo Nen stared at him. Tian Bang is a member of your military. He's even in the Coastal Defense Force. Tian Bang isn't that vulgar. As for me, my position in the He family isn't that high. You, on the other hand, can ask my sister and your secretary about the progress. He Donglu extended his hands and bumped fists. Our appetites aren't that big. Even if they beat our brains out, it won't hinder us from picking up girls. Cough, earning money. Luo Nen shut his mouth and didn't say anything. He didn't feel like continuing this topic. He Donglu shrugged his shoulders and turned around very straightforwardly. Thank you again. Come back and have some tea later. At that moment, he led a group of bodyguards and followers and swaggered away. Luo Nen stared at Luo Nan's back. He felt that Luo Nan seemed to be close to him, but Luo Nan's mouth was full of lies. Luo Nan was filled with dissatisfaction towards Luo Nan. This was very normal. With He Donglu's family background, there was absolutely no need for him to stick his face to an ability user. Not to mention that night at Ocean Sky Cloud City, when this person was being domineering, when he was forcefully suppressed by He Wayne. Kitty, any man would feel aggrieved after such an experience. Wouldn't it be a joke if they became the worst friend the second time they met? He Donglu seemed to have noticed Luo Nan's line of sight. He turned his head and waved at Luo Nan before he turned the corner. His smile was brilliant. After entering the passageway corridor, He Donglu's smile didn't change. He pressed the secret communication button on his wristband to talk to the bodyguard beside him. Speaking of which, how about me and that kid's older sister go for a while? It should be easy to play rock and roll. What's this called? Courtesy demands reciprocity. Don't you learn this from my sister? The bodyguard didn't want to get involved in this topic, but out of professional considerations he still responded. Right now he has a security team by his side. We have people in there. Holy crap. Old C, when did you become sinister? Luo Nan has always been a target that the military has been trying to control. It was Miss Een who arranged for people to be placed there. It was for protection and for precaution. He Donglu said unhappily, I know that this fellow is very dangerous, but can't you be a bit more straightforward with your words? The bodyguard, Old C, organized his words before saying, Luo Nan in the inner world has the highest evaluation of AB+. In the military's evaluation, he has an A, and in the judgment of the Xia City government, he has a red, meaning that he is extremely dangerous. Hold on. He Donglu interrupted Old C's words. He was a bit annoyed. The military and the government's judgments are out? When did this happen? Why are they still being raised? Just last week. Old C explained seriously. In terms of individual combat strength, Luo Nan's performance isn't all that outstanding. There are plenty of people in this world who can suppress him. But the key problem lies in the fact that he relies on tools like the Flying Devil Ray. He is an infrasonic array that can move at will. His destructive power toward civilians and conventional troops is comparable to that of extraordinaries. In addition to his unfathomable and profound level of mental senses and his young and emotional mental state, his degree of threat within Xia City and its surrounding regions has nothing to do with distance, interpersonal relationships, or division of power. Therefore, I suggest that young master he should maintain a distance with him in front of and behind of people. Old C wanted to say distance with this last sentence, but he felt that it was ambiguous. He hesitated for a moment before changing his words. Chapter 459. Discretion. Old C's words had more or less bruised Tidonglo's self-esteem. He grinned. Isn't he relying on that devil ray? How about this? I'll buy it and take it home to steam and braise it. Of course. These were words spoken out of anger. However, Old C's reply gave him another blow. The Xia City branch has already purchased that Flying Devil Ray last week. It's just that it's being nurtured there. This is an important reason why the city government and the general staff have updated their judgment. Motherf asterisk cur. Leaving it there is disgusting. Hidonglu sucked in a breath of cold air. He knew very well that the Xia City branch was fishing in this manner. They were fishing specifically for big fish like him, who harbored evil intentions. As for purchasing it in advance, it was even more reasonable. Of course, the Xia City branch was happy to see a threatening and intimidating existence comparable to an extraordinary, especially since Luo Nan was still so young, easy to control and easy to train. This favor was enough to make the kid shed tears of gratitude for several years. Oh, looking at the time, it just so happens to be after Tianbang's torment. Humph, using an A-rank dangerous individual to offset the impact of the incident and return to the old balance of power. Hidonglu curled his lips, fully joining the special power of the ability user organization, maintaining the dynamic balance between the military and the capital power, and allowing the entire society to maintain its upward force like a bamboo dragonfly. Isn't this the ideal state of the extraordinary era that my sister wishes for? TCH, if she wants to do politics, then what is she doing outside? No matter what her background is, she is now surnamed He. She is of the blood of the He family. As long as she makes up her mind, she will fight her way through the military. Perhaps the Air Force will be hers in the future. It's better than letting someone else take over. Old C spoke softly, using the extraordinary as the handle, using the military and the capital power as the rotor. Even though the power is meager, it is enough to allow civilization to rise in the sea of stars and stand alone in the universe. What did you say? Hidonglu didn't hear it too clearly. Old C shook his head, returning to the bodyguard's usual silence. Hidonglu had already arrived at the door of the suite. He pressed the doorbell, but then he thought of something. Everyone says that kids' sensing ability is super strong. At this distance, it's most likely possible. But the door to the suite opened. Hidonglu had a belly full of anger. He directly bypassed Assistant Meng and went inside. Shi Wei was bored to death in the living room. When she saw Hidonglu suddenly appear, she couldn't help but burst into a pleasantly surprised smile. Next, she lightly hugged him with Western etiquette. If it were in the past, Hidonglu might have directly made his move. But now, when he thought of the pair of incorporeal eyes watching his every move, he couldn't help but feel apprehensive. After a light hug, they separated. Attendant number 1 took advantage of this moment to place the Auspicious Abundance restaurant's custom-made food box on the tea table. Hidonglu pursed his lips. I ran into a little demon running errands on the road, so I brought it over for you. These words were meant for someone to hear. His mouth was taking advantage, but Hidonglu was actually depressed in his heart. The worst part about dealing with an ability user like Luo Nan was this. As long as the core of Luo Nan's power wasn't truly shaken, then Luo Nin could forget about taking any substantial advantage. Luo Nin would have to risk being killed at any time. Shi Wei kissed him lightly on the corner of his lips. "Let's have morning tea together. What do you want to eat?" "Shark's fin," He Donglu responded expressionlessly. Shi Wei was stunned. He Donglu couldn't help but sigh in despair when he thought about the sudden change in the program he was currently arranging. He patted Shi Wei's slender waist and sat down on the sofa. He closed his eyes and rested. Shi Wei was an A-list female star in the outside world. She had countless fans, but in front of a young master like He Donglu, she still very consciously put herself in the position of a canary. She obediently opened the food box, preparing to brew tea to receive He Donglu. Attendant number 1 took the opportunity to take credit for his performance. "Young Master He, I'm going to go connect with old Sha and organize the information. Then there won't be a day for the event." Halfway through his words, he saw He Donglu suddenly open his eyes and stare coldly at him. It was as if he was looking at an idiot or even a dead man. "Ho! Young Master He?" He Donglu wanted to throw something at him, but when he saw the pillow on the sofa, he felt that this fellow was taking advantage of him. He could only grit his teeth and say, "It's already 100 years of the Information Society. You still need to run to the scene when doing a project. Don't think that I don't know what you guys are thinking. Go. Don't stay here." Attendant number 1 had a stupefied look on his face. He Donglu let out a long sigh. His head and shoulders leaned back on the sofa. He was too lazy to speak again. This was another reason why he hated ability users. They completely exceeded the limits of a normal person's thinking. As long as they were willing, perhaps there were no secrets in this world to speak of. At this time, He Donglu looked at his attendants and felt vexed. He couldn't say anything. He could only wave his hand. "I'm going to rest. Get lost. Hurry up and get lost." The attendants were at a loss of what to do. Did he want them to do something? Or was it something else? He Donglu became more and more worried when he saw the ignorant appearances of this group of people. He was truly worried that this group of people would speak without restraint once they left the door. They would spill everything about that matter. If some unforeseen event were to happen, then he could forget about raising his head in the circle of Xia City in the future. "Old Si, I'll stay at Shi Wei's place for a while. I'll give you a vacation. Bring them downstairs. Get some exercise. Young Master He, you don't need to worry about safety. With a certain someone here, if something were to happen to me, would he still have the face to see my sister?" He Donglu had really gone all out. He had to hide that matter no matter what. He then sent a text message to Old Si, teaching him how to explain things to his attendants. Just like this, aside from He Donglu, the group of people came in majestically. They left with their heads and faces covered in dirt. They were all baffled. They turned out of the passageway and just happened to bump into Luo Nan and the long-legged, good-looking guy. They were carrying food containers and were just entering room 5621. Normally, the group of attendants would certainly say a few flowery words, but right now they were in no mood at all. Don't forget that Old Si was still watching silently from the side. Boss Luo, who made He Donglu look at him in a different light, was right in front of him. They were able to be He Donglu's long-term attendants. At the very least, they had the eyesight to keep their mouths shut and speak less. This was the best choice they could make. Old Si nodded toward Luo Nan in greeting. The attendants copied him one after another, and the two groups brushed shoulders. "Who are these people?" Bai Yu had question marks on her head. She saw them come out from the sealed passageway, and behind them was the only luxurious suite on this floor. Her eyes were filled with sparks of gossip. She turned her head and saw that Luo Nan was deep in thought. He didn't respond, so she turned her gaze to her best friend. "Siener, you just came up with them." Yu Qin's elegant eyebrows furrowed slightly. She bit her lower lip, unwittingly biting it until it turned white. If she didn't do this, she wouldn't be able to suppress the trembling that suddenly erupted within her body. The source of the stimulation wasn't Hidonglu. It was Luo Nan who was beside her. Her sensitivity in this area far surpassed everyone else present. She was able to more or less guess the answer from the limited information, such as Hidonglu's surname, the military, and so on. Kong Tianhe? Only now did she discover that her evaluation of Luo Nan's status had actually increased. It was raised to a nearly untouchable level. This made her a bit at a loss as to what to do. Therefore, she didn't hear Bai Yu's question at all. She just walked straight in. Shui Yuan and Clara did the same. Bai Yu still couldn't get an answer. She couldn't help but pat Luo Nan's arm. Why are you all so mysterious? Boss Luo, who in the world was that guy? He had a cheeky smile on his face, and he seemed to be Sister Weiwei's boyfriend. Luo Nan could only chuckle when he saw her expectant gaze, ready to receive some gossip at any time. He carried the 2 flowing stone set food boxes into the room, but he had second thoughts. It wasn't good to leave these refreshments for too long. He should go take a look at Amoya's place. He turned around and was about to leave, but Bai Yu had already grabbed the food boxes like a lackey. Boss, Bai Xiaoyu is here to serve you. I don't need you. Luo Nan wanted to take the food boxes from Bai Yu's hands, but this little girl nimbly dodged to the side. She rammed through the door first. Clearly, he wouldn't be able to get a reply from the food boxes if he didn't bring out a sufficient amount of gossip. Cat Eyes, who hadn't left the room this entire time, chuckled twice. But she didn't say anything that would make Luo Nan feel even more embarrassed for the sake of the expensive flowing stone set. Luo Nan shook his head and left the room. Bai Yu stood outside with her head held high and her chest puffed out. She assumed the posture of an orderly soldier. Give it to me. Bai Yu put the food boxes behind her back. She looked like she was dying. I just wanted to ask and satisfy my curiosity. The identity of Sister Weiwei's boyfriend is a huge piece of gossip. Don't worry. I absolutely won't post it on the internet. So if I don't mess around this time, you'll turn around and post it on the internet? Luo Nan discovered that he had underestimated Bai Yu's gossipy nature. He found it harder and harder to spit out. Just as he was about to say something, the door to room 5621 opened. Yu Qin stood at the door and spoke softly. Boss, do you need help? Don't tell me you can help hold Bai Yu down? Luo Nan waved his hand. Go rest. Yu Qin didn't say much. Her gaze lingered on Luo Nan's face for a moment. Then she bowed and retreated behind the door, gently closing it. Bai Yu finally saw the subtlety of the relationship between the two when she saw this scene. Sienna has such an arrogant temperament. Why is she so docile and obedient to you? What I mean is... Luo Nan was pondering over how to deal with this little gossip bug when he sensed something. Manager Sha, whose face could emit neon lights, had already come up in the elevator. She was headed for Shi Wei, but she saw Luo Nan and Bai Yu messing around here when she turned the corner. Clearly, she jumped in fright. She hid on the other side of the corner, sneakily observing. Luo Nan's thoughts spun in succession. He combined this with Hidonglu's strange behavior and couldn't help but have a few more thoughts. He looked at Bai Yu. The words that came out of his mouth had a subtle change. It's because of her family's company. This was an unexpected answer. Bai Yu couldn't understand it at all. Luo Nan revealed the truth of the matter. Her brother stole a woman and offended me. He's afraid that the company will go bankrupt, so... Are you serious? Bai Yu seemed to be listening to a novel. Luo Nan shrugged. In any case, Yu Jing isn't a smart person, right? Luo Nan felt that it was very interesting to see Bai Yu's adorable expression. He suddenly had an impulse and reached out to pat her cheek. Bai Yu stood there stupidly. Her eyes swiveled a few times before she suddenly cried out, Manager Sha! Her voice lingered in the air as she slammed into the door with the food box in hand. She was like a scurrying little rabbit. Chapter 460. Bayou rushed through the door and nearly bumped into Clara. What stopped them were the two large food boxes in front of them. Bang! Both of their arms were numb from the shock. "What are you doing?" The two spoke in unison. Clara switched the hand holding the food boxes and gently flipped her hair. "I can't let the seniors wait too long. I'm going to deliver the food." Bayou curled her lips. "Seniors? Which seniors are you talking about? Your popularity really makes my heart beat like a drum." "Screw you. Why did you come back? Where's Radish Silk? If you bring the Flowing Stone kit back, what will he use to visit?" "Ah, so stupid." Bayou scolded herself. Her voice dropped an octave in an instant. "Butcher. Butcher is outside." Bayou turned her head as she spoke. She saw that there was no sound outside. Only then did she realize, oh no, that guy must have been caught. Bayou wanted to open the door and go outside, but she was grabbed by Shui Yuan, who rushed up from behind. Then she turned on the security visual system. Within the visual range of the system, the hallway was empty. Not a single figure could be seen. Not a single voice could be heard. Where is he? Maybe he was dragged to the security office? He's not a thief. But, yeah, that's true. Though she said this, Bayou thought of Luo Nan's fingers slapping his face twice. The warm touch seemed to have lingered for quite some time. Her face was a bit hot, but she couldn't help but worry. Would he really not be treated as a thief? "I'll go out and check things out." Clara adjusted her breathing and raised her morale. "Is that okay?" Shui Yuan couldn't make up her mind. She turned to look at the others. Yu Qin, who had been following Luo Nin closely, was in a daze for some reason. Teacher Cat Eyes, who had the highest status here, was drinking tea with a smile. She didn't care about anything else. Shui Yuan seemed to realize something when she saw this scene. "There seems to be no problem?" Clara didn't care at all. "I have a valid reason." Though she said this, she still used the visual system to carefully check the situation outside. Only then did she open the door and go out. Bayou wanted to follow, but the image of Luo Nan's finger just now flashed in her mind. After hesitating for a moment, he was already a few steps behind. His courage instantly dropped. He could only stick his head out from the crack of the door and watch Carola pass through many doors until she reached the corner of the corridor, and then stay there. After a while, Clara held the food box and bowed. "Hello, Director Shaw. It's over." After that, Clara, who had turned a corner, had obviously taken a big detour. She was practically sticking close to the base of the wall to escape. It was obvious that Manager Shaw was still there. As for why he was staying there, the answer was very obvious. A few seconds later, Clara sent a message. "Don't come over. The butcher's smile is so scary." Bayou immediately replied, "Where is Boss Luo?" Face the wall and reflect on your mistakes. After that, there was nothing else. Bayou stared blankly at the message for quite some time. In the end, her body felt weak as she leaned her head against the door. She was extremely depressed. See, my reaction just now was too extreme. Why would I run? Almost at the same time, Manager Shah wanted to cry too. Why did I overreact like that? He stuck close to the base of the wall. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to stand steadily. The smile on his face had long stiffened, but he didn't dare to change. The child in front of him looked to be 15 or 16 years old. He wasn't as tall as him, and he didn't have a fierce expression on his face. On the contrary, he looked a little wooden. Yet, he felt an unreasonable amount of pressure. Even if he was up against the big boss of Mingting culture, he wouldn't be so indecisive. It was Clara's passing by that gave him a chance to catch his breath. Finally, his brain started to work. It was obvious that Boss Luo had a good relationship with the BHD group. Was she his target? According to his many years of experience, when it came to relationships between men and women, a teenager would be confused, thirsty, and possessive. Hence, they would be relatively complicated. Apart from those who matured early, most teenagers would be impulsive and wouldn't have a particularly heavy taste. But To be involved in multiple targets at the same time, if he wasn't a veteran, who else could be? But he didn't look like one. Was he good at disguising himself? The type that liked to play around with people's feelings? But the way he flirted with her wasn't like that at all. Manager Shah felt that he was really in a dilemma. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that, with his usual style of doing things, he would be so blind as to offend the son-in-law of Kong Tianhe. Of course, this was just a description. No matter what, Boss Luo was definitely the kind of person he couldn't afford to offend. Since he had done something stupid, he had to make up for it. What could he use to make up for it? He could only use his old profession. As a department manager of an entertainment company, he had many resources that ordinary people were envious of. But compared to a wealthy family like Kong Tianhe, it was a joke. The other party used him for fun. Otherwise, with just a thought, they could turn him into ashes with just a puff of air. Fun was the key word in everything. The best resource he had was none other than the banquet that was going to be organized soon. It was a carnival created by the libertines in the entertainment circle. There were some mysterious elements in it, and it had always been one of the most high-end symbols in the relevant circles. If Boss Luo liked this kind of thing, it would be ideal to do him a favor at little cost. But he still had some rationality left in him. Thousands of people had thousands of faces and thousands of desires. For an old driver who had crisscrossed the entertainment circle, a pool of wine and a forest of meat was what he wanted. But for a beginner who had just stepped into the field of love, he might even feel that it was dirty. There was a high chance that a hasty connection would backfire on one's clever plan before one could fully understand Boss Luo's background. Manager Shah had already thought things through. He would use Hai Jing, Young He, and many other channels to carefully inquire about Boss Luo. He would make plans after comprehensive consideration. But no matter what, he never thought that a terrible encounter would push him to the edge of the cliff. He watched helplessly as Luo Nen walked over. There was a distance of over 20 meters from room 5621 to the corner of the corridor. He had around 10 seconds to ponder over a countermeasure. But during this time, Manager Shah's mind was a field of blankness. It was as if a blackboard eraser had been used to erase the clever tricks that had been cultivated in the entertainment company for decades. It was a complete mess. After meeting Boss Luo, there seemed to be no other effective methods other than repeatedly apologizing and begging. But look at what this Boss Luo said. You didn't do anything wrong. I really did go through the back door. But I really am not some sightseeing fan. I just happened to run into Hai Jing, so I asked him for a favor. I came in to visit. You can go find him to confirm things. Is there something wrong with my brain? Why would I go and confirm things? Manager Shah was 120% sure that he had already offended this Boss Luo to the point of death. Otherwise, why would Boss Luo bother talking to him when he had already flipped the cards? Wasn't Boss Luo enjoying the pleasure of playing with a mouse? Perhaps this seemingly pure and good-natured youth was a psychopath. He had a disguised social personality. Normally, he would bring out this seemingly pure and good-natured personality to socialize with others, but in his heart he enjoyed the pleasure of toying with the entire society. Yes, yes, yes. It was like this. Right now, the oxygen content in Manager Shah's brain was no longer enough to support his deeper research and judgment. Grasping onto a seemingly reasonable judgment was like grasping onto a life-saving straw. He didn't consider at all that this was an ideal result that he had pushed all the way with his only high-level resources. It was a low-end application of the high-end functions of the human brain. He was deceiving himself. Please wait a moment. Please wait a moment. Manager Shah ignored Luo Nan's strange gaze. He operated on his wristband in a flurry. But the more anxious and flustered he was, the easier it was for him to make mistakes. He tossed and turned until he was drenched in sweat, but he didn't succeed. This time, Luo Nen was truly curious. What are you doing? Manager Shah's operation appeared to be very complicated, and his authority requirements were extremely high. There were a few times where he even had to test his breathing, heartbeat, and so on. It seemed that he was trying to shield himself from abnormal states such as being under duress. Sweat dripped from Manager Shah's forehead. He wanted to explain, but he couldn't find an entry point for the time being. Right when he was about to die, he suddenly saw Boss Luo turn his head and frown. "Whose room is room 5605? What? Oh, please wait a moment. I'll check." Manager Shah had a bitter expression on his face. He was just about to switch to the verification interface when a light suddenly flashed in his mind. The relevant memories came back. Lon Lin. It's Lon Lin, the high-quality idol that the company has nurtured for the past 2 years. High-quality idol. Right now, Luo Nan's mental senses had already covered room 5605. He saw this high-quality idol using his skillful and masterful techniques that could be used as teaching material to tease Clara, who had just delivered his takeout. If it wasn't for his companion coming out from the cubicle, Luo Nan would probably be in room 5605, reenacting the teaching video from room 5627. Not even an hour had passed, and the male lead hadn't changed, but the female lead had changed. Moreover, the quality was top-notch. Luo Nan admired him. "Your company is really capable of producing people, S." Luo Nan was really worried about Moya's prospects after signing with Mingtang Culture. Even though the rumors said that all the entertainment companies under the heavens were black-hearted, the feeling of seeing it with one's own eyes was always different. 2 seconds later, Clara escaped from room 5605 in a sorry state. However, the blush on her cheeks proved that she had indeed been teased. This was even more conspicuous on her milky white skin. She was distracted the entire way. She actually forgot that Manager Shah was blocking her way. Only when she reached the middle of the corridor did she see that there was no longer a large food container. She was truly at a loss on what to do. Luckily, Clara's mental fortitude was a bit stronger than Bayou's. She only froze for half a second before revealing a perfect, sweet smile. She instinctively flipped her blonde hair and greeted Luo Nan with her best female charm. She covered herself by sticking to the wall and slipping away. Luo Nan watched her leave. He was deep in thought. New evidence obtained. Manager Shah secretly clenched her fists. There was no need to mention the female companion who had delivered the takeout with her. First, there was Baiyu. Now there was Clara. This boss Luo had given her an extraordinary amount of attention. Moreover, he had done it very clearly. How did this disguised personality's acting suddenly become so bad? Chapter 461. Manager Shah fell deeper and deeper into the trap of his own logic, but he felt the entire world brighten up. In his days, he actually felt a sense of accomplishment of grasping the pearl of wisdom. He even took the initiative to probe. "Boss Luo, are you familiar with the BHD group?" "I like them quite a bit." Luo Nan had learned these words from Hidonglu. He spoke very casually, but Manager Shah was moved to tears. He had finally found a seemingly reliable entry point. With a topic of conversation and a familiar field, Manager Shah's breathing and heartbeat gradually calmed down. At the same time, he began to do his best. Although this girl group is a bit more experimental in nature, they actually have a lot of potential. Their singing, dancing, and appearance are top-notch among the few batches of people the company has nurtured. The rarest thing is that they have quite a bit of character. They aren't simply selling their public personas. They don't have any particular weaknesses, aside from their small number. If they have a character like Boss Luo supporting them in the future, it would be hard for them not to become famous. Luo Nan's gaze returned to Manager Shah's face. He felt like he was looking at a brothel keeper with a silver tongue. Manager Shah responded with a humble smile. Or should he say that everything went smoothly? Once he found the right path, even the verification that he couldn't get through would be no problem. Manager Shah let out a breath of relief, but he raised his mind. This was a gamble. He struggled a few times in his mind, but he finally gritted his teeth and got to the point. Boss Luo, I had eyes but failed to recognize MT Tai. You can scold me if you want. Speaking of which, my position is low and my eye sockets are shallow. I nearly missed out on a character like you. You are a magnanimous person. You will certainly give me a chance to make up for it. Luo Nan looked at him coldly, not saying a word. Manager Shah summoned up what little courage he had left. He raised his left hand, doing his best to stop it from trembling. A virtual screen lit up, displaying the words "Invitation Privileges." This privilege identification code is an entrance ticket to an event. I know that it's easy for Boss Luo to go to this sort of place, but the channels are different. The resources you enjoy are different as well. Luo Nan didn't immediately take it. He just responded absent-mindedly. Is this the one he Donglu wants to torment? It had to be said that torment was an excellent word. Manager Shah nodded incessantly. Luo Nan chuckled. Your resources are just these before your eyes. I know that BHD is led by Haijing. Of course, there's also Mountain Creek. Manager Shah was a bit surprised. Boss Luo knows Mountain Creek? Yeah, the lead singer and drummer are impressive. The lead singer, Amoya, and the drummer, Shuei, were two great beauties. Moreover, they were the domineering type. They were not old, but they were quite philanthropic. Manager Shah didn't care about anything else. He made promises and the like. No problem at all. Really? Hai Jing is very protective of Shangxi, right? You know that too? Manager Shah was really excited. To tell you the truth, there will be a major change in the company in the near future. Whether or not Hai Jing can keep its rice bowl is still uncertain. Halfway through his sentence, his heart suddenly stopped. Wait, what am I saying? This Boss Luo is obviously related to Hai Jing. He is most likely an acquaintance. Am I crazy? Luo Nan's voice entered her ears during her moment of panic and bewilderment. Is Mrs. Halder really going to withdraw completely? When these words entered his ears, Manager Shah shuddered again. Not only did this Boss Luo know about the financial group behind Mington Culture, he even called Madame Halder by her name. It must be known that he was a mid-level employee of a subsidiary company. It was only by chance that he found out about the true background of the financial group and the name of the true big boss. Even if Madame Halder's influence in Xia City was like a faded flower, knowing was knowing and her attitude was still this casual, this was F*King level. Manager Shah's entire body was trembling. Excitement and fear coexisted. Under the surging emotions, the worries that had just leaped out, as well as the thoughts and consciousness that he couldn't figure out, were all drowned out. His thoughts grew more and more fuzzy. He really wanted to have a good chat with Boss Luo. Unfortunately, this sort of matter wasn't something he could comment on. Right now, he could only smile foolishly. Luo Nan scanned the words on the virtual screen once more. Finally, he raised his hand. Manager Shah was instantly struck with happiness when she saw this action. She wanted to move her hand over, but her arm was stiff. She could only use her other hand to support herself and carefully stick her wristbands together. Half a second later, the screen of Luo Nan's wristband lit up, revealing a classic DNA double helix structure diagram. Soon, the double helix structure scattered into thousands of meaningless numbers, piecing back together to form a disc-shaped diagram. 3 seconds later, it faded away. Manager Shah stared fixedly at the screen of Luo Nan's wristband. She let out a long sigh of relief when she saw the garbled diagram appear. She subconsciously groaned, then laughed in spite of herself. It's past. It's past. Luo Nan's face was expressionless the entire time, but his ears jumped a few times. The hexaear hidden deep within his ear canal transmitted a message the moment the screen of his wristband lit up. It was the intelligent voice of the psychic wave network. Serial number 5357 It has been detected that there is an external reading operation on your social privileges record. The operator is the SCA Supercomputer Level 2 AI, Rank 9. According to the confidentiality regulations, priority is given to data protection. During the protection period, you can choose 1. Unblock after detecting the danger level. 2. Perform multiple levels of encryption. 3. Carry out data camouflage. All of your operations will be recorded in a copy for future review. If the selected operation is forcefully terminated, please contact the relevant person in charge. The intelligent voice ended, and the verification happened to pass. Luo Nen shook his hand, as if he had gained something. Outsourcing verification services to the SCA. This is quite a high-end atmosphere. A thought flashed through his mind, and his gaze shifted to meet Manager Shaw's. He nodded lightly. You've worked hard. 2 minutes later, the door to room 5621 opened, and Luo Nan walked in with his head lowered. Bai Yu immediately leaped up and asked, You're back. Are you all right? Did he make things difficult for you? What? Butcher? Cough. Did Manager Shaw do anything to you? Luo Nan shook his head. He just wanted to know the ins and outs of the situation. He didn't make things difficult for me, knowing that Brother Haijing brought me in. When the 3 members of the BHD group heard this reply, their eyes had the expression, keep bragging. Bai Yu wanted to ask more questions, but she was pulled back by Shui Yuan. She whispered, since it's already in the past, don't get to the bottom of it. There's no harm in asking. Clara pulled her back as well. Men care about their faces. What if we get lectured? No, since we already got lectured. It would hurt our pride to talk about it. Bai Yu turned her head and saw that Luo Nen had returned. He found a corner and sat down. His head was lowered, and he had a rather dejected appearance. She hesitated for a moment and finally decided to change the topic. Hey, didn't you want to go visit them? They're busy right now. Luo Nen used his mental senses to observe the progress of Moya and the other's practice as he conversed with Manager Shaw. He knew that the rare resting window had already passed. He could only wait for the next one. It was almost lunchtime. Luo Nan continued to lower his head after dealing with Bai Yu. Actually, most of his attention was still locked onto Manager Shaw. Manager Shaw's life sketch was dim and lightless in comparison within the resplendent, living starry sky. Its structure was very simple. It was nothing more than a few lines of starlight. However, if one focused on it and continued to permeate it, one would be able to see a bit more information. In a certain sense, the life sketch was just a window leading to the mysteries of the body and mind of others. One needed to do further observation and the corresponding coding and decoding work in order to obtain more detailed information. The Wraith sign was an expert in this field. It was a demon that specialized in peeking at the minds and minds of others. Its incomparably powerful instincts were enough for it to do many inconceivable things. In comparison, even though Luo Nen had gone through a period of study and grasped some basic knowledge of the mental side, what he could do was very limited. However, Manager Shaw was an ordinary person. His abilities were overflowing, right? Right now, Manager Shaw was in a bit of a daze. He walked in the hallway, swaying back and forth. He bumped into a few people who greeted him along the way, but they were at a loss. His mental state was quite bad. The mental attack just now interfered with the material plane. It squeezed the outer medial temporal lobe of the hippocampus and part of the cortex. There shouldn't be any problems with the operation. Papercut said that this method can destroy the target's short-term memory. Could it be that the attack process was too intense and the aftermath damaged the hippocampus? Maybe I should have used interference from the beginning, blocking the nerve signals. Luo Nan slowly pondered over Manager Shaw's current state in conjunction with his life sketch. His goal was very simple. He wanted to obtain more information from this person while preventing others from discovering anything strange, exposing his existence and inclination. Right now, The ones who were more likely to obstruct his goal were undoubtedly He Donglu and his group. Since they were all in this building, Luo Nan reluctantly monitored them for a period of time. Just like right now, the bodyguard Old C, whom he had met once before, had returned. According to his current pace, he could just meet Manager Shah face to face. Manager Shah was currently in a dazed mental state. How could he hide from others? Turn a corner. Luo Nan's consciousness probed through the window, giving Manager Shah a new stimulation. Manager Shah was still muddle-headed. He just subconsciously moved his legs, took 2 quick steps, and circled around the corner. The elevator door opened, and Old C walked out. The long corridor was completely empty. He didn't detect anything out of the ordinary. He hurried to the room where He Donglu was residing. On the way, Old C passed by a corner that certain someone had taken a step ahead of him. It was just that he didn't notice it. Manager Shah stood blankly behind the soundproof door in the corner, facing the empty room. How did I get here? Manager Shah blinked his eyes. He just felt dizzy, as if he had just experienced a nightmare. That's right. He really did experience a nightmare in the elevator. Hey, what happened next? It seemed like it was resolved. Room 5621. Luo Nan's head was still lowered as he looked at his open palm. His naturally slightly curled 5 fingers gently gathered the air, but he seemed to be able to feel some sort of marvelous tension. It was like he was gathering an incorporeal soul. The information that came from Manager Shah's life sketch was scattered and subtle. It involved consciousness, memories, emotions, and many other most precise and complex functions. And all of this was in the palm of his hand, allowing him to fiddle with it. Chapter 462. Luo Nan had never used this much strength on an ordinary person before. The information Luo Nan had gathered was quite complicated, but he was confident that he could weave a set of memories that had never existed for Manager Shah within a day or 2 if he were to continue experimenting layer by layer. As for whether it was logical or not, it depended on the ability of the director and screenwriter and nothing else. If this method was used in actual combat, it would probably be the legendary illusion technique. He remembered that he had heard of a similar method in his supplementary lessons. He just didn't know if it would still be effective against an ability user. Aside from Manager Shah, there was another group of people that Luo Nan was paying attention to. It's He Donglu's attendants A, B, C, D. Maybe it's 1, 2, 3, 4? Anyway, the bodyguard didn't look like a bodyguard, and the driver didn't look like a driver. They were dressed very casually and looked like artists. In the end, Luo Nan was able to guess 30 to 50% of what they were here for, combined with Manager Shah's description. That group of people had already been brought downstairs by Old C, out of the Tonghui building and away from the plaza area. At this time, they were already 10 kilometers away, a straight line distance of about 12,000 meters. Such a distance had indeed exceeded the radius of Luo Nan's omnidirectional observation of the material plane. However, if they were to start from the living starry sky and lock onto the target to carry out a partial detection, it was still too early. It wouldn't be a problem for them to travel another 10 kilometers. Luo Nan was certain that Manager Shah would not be able to dig up anything new for the time being, so he split a portion of his energy to lock onto this group of people. The group of followers were ordered to keep their mouths shut by Old C, and all of them were confused and depressed. Now that they had finally reached the so-called safe distance, how could they hold it in any longer? They all opened their mouths and laughed. Luo Nan was unable to listen for a time, so he simply activated the Hexa-Ear's response transfer function to record all of this information. He would sort it out later. Now, he was more concerned about the consciousness, memories, and emotions of these followers. The lackeys were all ordinary people like Manager Shah. Luo Nan rarely studied these subjects due to various considerations in the past. Even if he did observe them, he would do so in a way that would not affect the target's normal life. However, through his experiments with Manager Shah, he realized that there was quite a bit of knowledge in this, especially when compared to ability users. He could see even more subtleties. Manager Shah was the first experimental subject, and these people could be considered experimental subjects 2, 3, 4, and 5. They could gather information and conduct research on the mental side at the same time. Luo Nen pondered deeply. He used the external neuron to open the built-in software. He created a new notebook and prepared to make some experimental records. At this moment, someone patted his knee. "Can you raise your head? You're not going to cry, are you?" Bai Yu half knelt in front of Luo Nan. She moved her head closer. She was both concerned and gossipy, but this little girl clearly didn't realize what it meant to go overboard. Doll! The team leader of the Snow Garden Academy felt a sense of responsibility as he grabbed Bai Yu by the neck and dragged her back. Clara came over to help and whispered in her ear, "What are you talking about?" Stop, stop, stop. I'm dying." Bai Yu was strangled to the point where her eyes rolled back. Her 2 legs kicked wildly and she was caught off guard. She kicked the high heel on her right foot away, sending it flying straight for Luo Nan's skull. Aya, the BHD group, cried out in alarm, and in the next instant, Luo Nan reached out with his hand. 3 fingers grasped the back edge of the shoe, leaving only his index finger to hook. He straightened his arm and pulled away. At the same time, he raised his head and looked at the trio who were huddled together. No athlete's foot, right? Impossible. Bai Yu's face immediately turned red. She didn't know where she got the strength to break free from her team leader's grip. She hopped over on 1 foot and snatched the shoe away. But because she used too much strength, she nearly bumped into Luo Nan. She had to use her elbow to support herself against the wall in order to maintain her balance. In this position, if Luo Nan were to straighten his back a bit, his head would likely bump into her rather large chest. And if he were to remain motionless, his gaze would be level, and he would be able to see the snow-white waist exposed by the stretch of her back. There was also the waistline of her vest. Luo Nan felt a bit of envy. He had been cultivating with Jim Master Shio for a period of time, and he had received the reverse nourishment of soul strength. His body was strong and tenacious, far surpassing that of an ordinary person. However, the internal cultivation technique did not focus on the sculpting of muscles. He had yet to train into a clear line of abdominal muscles. He still looked thin and weak on the surface. Bai Yu was young, and her body leaned towards the voluptuous type. Clearly, she had put in quite a bit of effort to train to this degree. Since he was envious, Luo Nan couldn't help but give her a few more glances. His eyesight was good. He could clearly see that a layer of red had already appeared on Bai Yu's snow-white belly. Oh, the little girl was shy. Of course. Bai Yu knew how awkward her current position was. She put on her shoes in a standard flustered manner and retreated in a sorry state. She nearly sprained her ankle. Fortunately, Shui Yuan caught her from behind. Thoughts of a completely new direction fluctuated intermittently. Beautiful youthful limbs moved closer and farther away. The situation had changed in succession in a short few seconds. Luo Nan could not help but sigh. Bai Yu had become extremely sensitive right now. What are you sighing for? Shui Yuan and Clara had already given up all hope for Luo Nan to be able to ask such a stupid question. Luo Nan could feel that the little girl had lost her mind from embarrassment and anger. He didn't want to make things difficult for her, so he casually made up a reason. I'm a bit disappointed. I originally wanted to use the credit of running errands to get an autograph from Shiwei, but in the end my lunch box was taken away, and I even ran into that manager Shah. Bai Yu no longer dared to speak. Clara was a bit displeased with Luo Nan's bullying of her sister. She curled her lips and said, "You want an autograph, and you say you're not familiar with the entertainment circle?" Luo Nan spread his hands. "My cousin is crazy about her. An autograph can be exchanged for at least 2 sumptuous meals. There's no hope now." Clara deliberately teased him. She flicked her hair out of habit and even gave him a coquettish look. "We'll sign it to you. but in another 10 years. Pooh, pooh, pooh. In another year, maybe it'll be worth a lot of money. It won't be a problem to make your brother. And you confused and confused. Really? Are you sure? Cat Eyes, who had been brewing tea in the lounge this entire time, finally came out. She held a bamboo tea tray in one hand and walked straight to Luo Nan's side to sit down. Her movements were quite skillful as she sat down. The tea tray spun horizontally, but the small and exquisite teapot and teacups on it were all stable and proper. Not a single drop of water came out. It was as if she was performing acrobatics. The gazes of the group shifted. Luo Nan was fine, but the BHD trio, and Eugene gasped in surprise. Clara was a bit emotional. If I had this level of balance and body control, I would apply to the Auckland Academy of Performing Arts right now. I would be an artist when I graduate. Cat Eyes gently and dexterously put down the tea tray. She shot a glance at them. Don't change the subject. Barbie, since you said that you can make the boss confused and confused, then you guys go prepare and give it a try. The BHD trio were all stupefied. It took quite a while for Clara to understand. I'm just saying. It's fine as long as I'm serious. The break time is over. Let's do the last adaptation exercise before lunch. You guys didn't have an audience of the opposite sex before, so you guys weren't able to get good feedback. But now there's a certain someone here. At least the age matches. He's clearly an entertainment illiterate. It's fine as long as he's a normal man. Cat Eyes turned her head to ask Luo Nan after she finished speaking. Boss, are you all right? Get lost. Then let's begin. Cat Eyes poured a cup of tea down her throat and sighed in satisfaction. You guys have 1 minute to clean up the area. The BHD trio immediately turned into a chaotic mess. Luo Nan watched Cat Eyes drink tea, thinking that he would be able to get the last treatment. He never thought that Cat Eyes would place the tea tray on the other side of her body. She even called out to Eugene. You get a cup too, Mr. Luo. There are only 2 cups. He definitely has to display his style. Then I'll go get some refreshments. He won't have any tea. He'll choke to death. Choke your sister. Luo Nan used a fierce gaze to gouge out Cat Eyes, but she leaned against his shoulder in an extremely intimate manner. She giggled and tilted her head. What were you doing just now? There was no need for Luo Nan to hide anything from this believer of his who had a deep tendency to self-destruct. He simply described the process of his research. He also wanted to share his experiences. I've never tested this sort of technique on an ordinary person before. I tried it out today. It's quite easy to get used to it. In the past, I'm an expert in long-range sensing. I'm not a mind excavator. There should always be a comparison between ability users and non-ability users. Luo Nan's gaze unconsciously glanced at Cat Eyes as he spoke. If you want to talk about test subjects, there's an ideal one here. Are you thinking about this? I'm saying, did you know that the BHD group is also a test subject? I just heard Director Shaw mention it. Excellent. Now you can experience it for a bit. The prelude to the music rang out. The 3 members of the girl group laughed as they gathered together. They each took their positions. Some are squatting, some are standing, and some are raising their heads slightly. Although the postures they adopted were all different, they had all gone through thousands of tempering. They were the most outstanding and most moving postures. Their gazes were different from the sculptures. The first thing they did was focus on the audience, which was Luo Nan. The 3 beautiful and cute girls cast their gazes over at the same time. They hooked their gazes and hooked Luo Nan's soul. Luo Nan's heart thumped. The dynamic dance music had already begun. As the captain, Shui Yuan's singing was very solid. Her enunciation was clear, and there was a bit of a metallic sound to it. However, Luo Nan couldn't hear what she was singing clearly. The 3 youthful bodies swaying before his eyes dazzled his eyes. The song and dance of the BHD group didn't have any artistic qualities. but every movement of theirs displayed youthfulness and dynamism. Well, in fact, it just highlighted the beauty and figures of the girls. Only after Luo Nan recovered from these direct impacts did he notice the lyrics, the song, the singing skills, and the characteristics of each member's temperament. Luo Nan really was unable to shift his eyes away. Unknowingly, there was an awkward feeling of dryness spreading throughout his body. The feeling was especially intense in certain areas. Cat Eye's voice cut in at this time. "Do you see the problem?" Luo Nan wanted to speak, but he was unable to say anything in the end. He could only shake his head awkwardly. Cat Eyes raised an eyebrow, and the topic of conversation changed in an instant. "Tisk, Tay, you only have one good point." Luo Nan glared at her. He didn't try to conceal it. "This is instinct. But I'm not a beast." "Huh." Before his voice fell, Cat Eyes clearly blew a breath of air into his ear. The warm, itchy, and numb feeling radiated to his entire head in an instant. What accompanied it was a low and hoarse laughter. "If you're worse than a beast, then you're really done for." This was right under the eyes of others. Luo Nan was shocked at first, but then his fury wrapped in restless emotions and burned all the way up. "What the hell are you doing?" Chapter 463. Since Cat Eyes and Luo Nan were shoulder to shoulder, she slid down Luo Nan's chest the moment she curled up. Her bent elbow struck a vital spot. Luo Nan's instinctive reaction had yet to subside, but he only furrowed his brows at Cat Eye's more stimulating actions. He pushed Cat Eyes away. "You can see a psychiatrist. Let's go together." Cat Eyes did not care what pose Luo Nan wanted to take. Her attitude was relaxed, as if she was joking with a close friend. However, the words that came out of her mouth were extremely strange. "Did you know? Most of the awakened ones who are still in puberty rarely suppress themselves. Whether it was psychologically or physically, they had strong stimulations and needs. This was the norm. But now the problem is you can still make it physically, but psychologically it's a little strange." She didn't give Luo Nan a chance to refute. Her eyeballs shifted to the other side, and she pointed at Yuqin. "For example, you should know that, smart girl. All you need to do is crook your finger." And she absolutely wouldn't mind using this sort of method to mend the relationship. "That's enough from you. Awakened ones aren't born stallions. Okay." Luo Nan's words were like this, but his eyes unconsciously shot a glance in Yuqin's direction. Right now, Yuqin's mind was clearly not on the song and dance. Though she was sitting upright and still, she would send a gaze over from time to time. She was paying attention to the atmosphere of interaction between Luo Nan and Cat Eyes. "Are you tempted yet?" Cat Eyes stared fixedly at Luo Nan. It seemed that she would not give up until she detected the beast gene on Luo Nan's body. "If I don't, then I'm a pervert?" "Yeah, a different kind of pervert. He's becoming more and more like some people." Some people. Although the statistics aren't complete, based on the current information, a similar situation would fit perfectly with those so-called gods and children of God who became extraordinaries a long time ago. "Thank you for thinking highly of me." "Think highly of me?" "As expected. You're the one who's feigning ignorance." Cat Eyes moved her face closer once more. Her voice became cold and hoarse. "I don't believe that you can't tell, boss. I'm afraid of you." This time Luo Nan didn't push her away. Instead, he turned his face to the side. The distance between the two was so close that they could hear each other's breaths. People would believe it if they said they were kissing from a different angle. On the other side, Yuqin's breathing unconsciously quickened. Unfortunately, whether it was Luo Nan or Cat Eyes, neither of them had any thoughts of romance at the moment. "Boss, you're too close." Cat Eye's breath faintly carried the fresh fragrance of tea. However, the meaning behind her words was sluggish and oppressive. "Shouldn't a god like you maintain a distance from your believers?" Luo Nan sighed. "I'm not a god. But it's a trainee. Therefore, you have to constantly ponder, practice, and experiment in order to improve. During this period of time, Your followers, unfortunately, such as myself, will undoubtedly become your experimental subjects. You think too much. Luo Nen felt that Cat Eyes was suffering from paranoia. Right when he was about to have a serious conversation with her, he heard a bang. Bai Yu and Clara, who had switched places in front of him, collided into each other. Their heads bumped into each other, and the sound was painful. The two women hugged their heads and squatted down. Bai Yu was in so much pain that tears rolled down her face. If such a low-level mistake were to happen on stage tonight, the BHD group would probably be fighting for the headlines. However, Luo Nan and Cat Eyes' exchange postures in such a deranged manner was eye-piercing and heart-piercing. The fact that the BHD trio managed to hold on until now before making a mistake was because they were focused. Luo Nan pulled a taut face and turned his face away. Cat Eyes acted as if nothing had happened. She just clapped her hands again. Focus a bit. The AR effects on stage are even more chaotic. When the time comes, you won't even have the chance to hug your heads and cry. Continue. The three girls were still in a daze. They just instinctively swayed along with the music and sang along to the lyrics. 6 gazes revolved around Luo Nan and Cat Eyes most of the time. Cat Eyes was not demanding. She just said to Luo Nan, "You see, BHD is just an experimental subject." Their appearance originated from the inspiration of the person in charge that lasted no more than 10 seconds. With this as the skeleton, a team was built, and the 3 of them were found one after another. Right now, the experiment has just begun. The person in charge is already impatient to let them go on stage. Right now, their biggest problem is that they don't have enough people. For example, on tonight's stage, there will inevitably be a visual blank. Their singing skills are far from being able to support a stage of 1 million people. So, they can only use backup dancers or large amounts of AR images to fill in the blanks, creating a situation where the host is usurped. Failure is inevitable. Luo Nen raised an eyebrow. You're a teacher. Is it really okay to curse your own students? A wondrous smile formed on Cat Eyes' lips. This isn't the first time BHD has failed. Their debut song lacks any special characteristics. They haven't even made a splash. They've failed to make it onto the charts. They don't have any endorsements to this day. Mingtang Culture's internal allocation of resources is also very stingy. In the next 1 or 2 years, the company will probably make adjustments to them in terms of positioning and personnel. They will try them one by one. But the patience of a businessman is always limited. They will either find the right path and become successful and famous, or their team will disintegrate and find their next home. Their path to stardom will be dim and even abandoned. Having said this, Cat Eyes turned her head to look at Luo Nen once more. You can say that you have some friendship with them. If you want to send them some words of encouragement, what should you say? Work hard. TSK, what in the world are you trying to say? I'm sorry, but the word work hard doesn't play a decisive role in determining their future. The one who truly controls them is Mingtang Culture's artiste department. They are the person in charge who single-handedly forged them. The direction drawn by these people is the most crucial factor in the survival or destruction of the BHD group. Boss, is this my future destiny? Luo Nan wanted to refute her, but just as he opened his mouth, the word stuck in his throat. Right now, he was looking straight into Cat Eyes' pupils. At the same time, he was grasping her life sketches and the structure of her body and soul. He gently plucked at the crisscrossing chains between them. In this state, even the slightest change in Cat Eyes could not escape his grasp. Could it still not be called fate? I've been flipping through nearly all the information related to the leaders of the order for some time now. The growth of nearly every god is established on a foundation that goes against human nature and the common sense of society. Your understanding of the world is on another level. Cat Eyes reached out her hand and gently touched Luo Nan's cheek. Her seemingly gentle movements were actually more like touching a cold, hard, and dignified statue of a god. There was observation, there was fear, there was inquiry, but there was no emotion factor between people. The will of a god is immeasurable. Destiny is the same. But I can tell you clearly, boss, I don't want to meaninglessly sacrifice myself for those inconceivable reasons. If I can't escape in the end, I'd rather die by the hands of a normal man. I understand the cause and effect clearly. Luo Nan frowned at first. Several seconds passed before he suddenly broke into laughter. Was this a prayer? No, this was clearly revenge. This was a declaration of war. Cat Eyes had avoided the pointless, direct confrontation. Instead, she vowed to be a stumbling block on his path forward. She would do everything in her power to destroy his path to godhood. From the looks of it, her weapon was the so-called desire of human nature. Up to you. Luo Nan really wanted to emphasize once more that he never had any intentions of becoming a god. Cat Eyes' confrontation was meaningless, but there was no meaning in saying these words too much. His mind spun, and his train of thought traced back to the source. He suddenly understood why Cat Eyes suddenly felt fear in her heart. He flipped open his palm and gently clenched it twice. He spoke softly. It's because of Manager Shah, right? That person isn't a good person. Cat Eyes responded unhurriedly. There's no right or wrong in front of a god. But there are also people who are close and distant, right? That fellow has ideas about BHD and even my sister. There's nothing wrong with me searching for information from his body. You're thinking too much. Anyway, doesn't your words prove that my research methods are very effective? The smile on Cat Eyes' face suddenly froze. Luo Nan laughed out loud and leaned his body back against the wall. He adjusted his posture slightly, making his sitting posture more comfortable. Then he closed his eyes. Even though Cat Eyes' supple and fragrant body was leaning to the side, it did not affect him from entering a state of concentration once more. The living starry sky unfurled. Manager Shah, lackeys 1, 2, 3, and 4 all made special marks. Luo Nan continued to ponder over the marvels within. He bluntly used Cat Eyes, a believer, as a reference. Time passed bit by bit, and Luo Nan really did abandon all the changes in the external world. It was only past noon when his biological clock, formed over the past few days, reminded him that he needed to do an afternoon class. Only then did he restrain his mind, adjust his breathing, and enter a meditative state. It was unknown when he had entered a state of sleep, but Luo Nan's subconscious was still operating, still observing the starry sky. Moreover, the research results of Manager Shah and other ordinary people unconsciously and unconsciously entered his knowledge judgment system, constantly refining the relevant conditions. In his days, Luo Nan had a dream. It was like he was shaking a sieve, but it was also like he was operating a laboratory centrifuge. He slowly separated and filtered the millions and millions of stars of the living starry sky from various levels, forming a fuzzy hierarchical division. There were some gaps that did not belong to the scope of this research, but he could fill them in. There were still a few levels above ordinary people and below the awakened. Some had just begun cultivating, like Xie Junping. Some had already cultivated but had yet to awaken, like Worker Zhai. They could all be used as reference objects. Xie Junping was one of his believers. Worker Zhai had discussed the feeling of using the condensation ring to accelerate the awakening with Xie Junping many times during this time. The relevant information was ready-made. It was just that Luo Nan rarely considered using the hierarchical division method to carry out the division. Actually, the train of thought was ready-made. Wasn't the framework of the social format just like this? In the past, Luo Nan only looked above. He never looked below. Now, there were finally layers upon layers of stairs that slowly extended down from the suspended region. Oh, there was also the technique of distinguishing the root receptacle, root nature, and root trigger taught by Gym Master Xiu. It was extremely appropriate to use it here. Many subtle details could be seen. Gradually, The void was divided into layers, and the stars returned to their positions. Although the overall structure was still rough and chaotic, there was a vague distinction between the various stairs. After all, the differences between ordinary people, non-awakened ability users, and awakened were quite obvious. It was practically impossible for a situation of confusion to occur. Luo Nan's mind shook, and he instantly woke up from his half-asleep state. His eyes opened,